Hey, everybody. Hello, my fellow Westorians. Welcome back to Monday show-only review live streams. And, well, what a challenge we're all faced with in trying to analyze this episode because so much happened. It's almost the same length as the battle we just had, but not, but more dialogue, more character moments, just... Battles don't have those as much. They do have character moments, to be clear. And episode 3 had a lot of character moments. But this was almost as long as episode by like a few minutes with just vastly more dialogue and more character stuff and more plot movement, things like that.
I just had this thought in my head that, a picture says 1,000 words. And which is clear if you think about the ratio of how much material has been generated, analyzing the show and the books compared to how much is there. And but that said, still think about how many. Okay, so when someone's running around in combat, chop someone down with a sword. It's that's one word, right? Yeah. But the image of Tyrion facing King's Landing and that's a lot of words.
That's
just
a
to
lot
talk
of
about
words.
that image.
You're right. And battles, we're supposed to have battles in this show, of course, and the loss that comes from them makes sense. Of course, people are going to die in battles, even though, frankly, a lot of the major Game of Thrones battles in the past actually didn't have major deaths. So some people, it's funny that we complained that maybe this battle didn't have enough deaths in it, but really, compared to other ones, they didn't really have much main character death at all. But anyway, that's another point entirely. In a lot of ways, though, this episode really reminds us of this concept. When there's a lot of loss, sometimes there's, the way you can look at it. The survivors have it worse in some cases. You know what I mean? Obviously, Missandei, use her as an example. She was robbed of a full life. She was robbed of happiness. She was robbed of all the opportunities that you get from having a life, from being born and all that. But it's Grey Worm and Dany and the rest who suffer her loss, the trauma that comes from it, and the duty to avenge her that comes from it as well. And that's a whole nother thing. And it's exactly...
Can we say desire to avenge her?
Desire to avenge her.
Maybe duty, but definite desire.
Well, they see it as a duty. Whether it really is or not, I guess, is a philosophical question, but they certainly see it that way. And it's also fits into the whole reminder that this is a tragedy. This story is a tragedy. It's an adventure, it's an epic, but it's also a tragedy. And this plays in line with Cersei's strategy, doesn't it? We're going to get into this a little more detail later, but just as an example here to start us off, she believes that Dany won't kill a bunch of innocents, or at least that it will give Dany pause, right? She might be wrong, though, as we'll discuss. You push Dany too far, and she loses her temper, fire comes out, and the blood spills as a result.
To be fair, not just Dany, anyone.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone too far.
It's absolutely, but Dany is the person in this great position of power.
Have all the power.
She's the one with dragons.
Damage, right.
Yeah. So it's not a mark against Dany. Throughout this episode, Dany's going to be, of course, a major topic. And just one thing I really want to try to get across is just how difficult it is to see her perspective on everything. It's really hard, not just because of who her character is and how many things she's been through, but just the setting makes the whole thing more challenging. Anyway, we'll get back to that. I just wanted to introduce that.
Just a new thought just popped in my head. You need to have, once there are nuclear weapons, you have to reevaluate the leaders.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We could not have Teddy Roosevelt president with nuclear weapons existing. Whatever other good things he may have done, you definitely have to reevaluate.
He was
a war hawk.
State. Yeah. So when the weapons of destruction are bigger, the people in power have to be held more accountable. And Dany, as far as a human being goes, she's no different than a lot of other people in terms of like wants and hopes and fears. But she has dragons in a big army, so when she gets mad and loses her temper, there's more consequences, right? Same thing for Jon earlier when he had more power, but he never's had, dragons to go unleash on somebody. Now, Dany, to be fair, for the most part, has kept her temper in check. She gets mad and then kind of backs down a lot of times. But this is where we might be seeing that really come to a head because she's never been pushed this hard. She's never had so much loss, so much trauma, and so much isolation.
You know who else has come close? Cersei.
Yes.
And look what Cersei did.
Yes.
Maybe Cersei's a more definitive villain in the first place. But
absolutely. Part of this episode, we're going to compare Cersei to Dany quite a lot, compare their loss of children and everything else around them and their isolation. They're not similar characters in their personality and their ethics, but they are similar in a lot of the circumstances and the way the story is played out for them and the things that they've dealt with, right? So I'm not comparing them, but what's happened to them.
We're going to compare and contrast them.
Yes, absolutely. And so all this is just a stark, yes, pun intended, obviously, reminder that this is a tragedy, right? And this is just one example.
Stark reminder, that'd be a good name for some kind of company that had memorabilia for, I wonder if anything's like that out there.
Yeah, go to starkreminders.com and maybe it already exists. Actually, yes, it does. We've worn their shirts and shown their stickers and other cool stuff. Good shout out for them. And Kit Harington before this episode aired, he said it was Shakespearean. And, I'm not a big expert on Shakespeare, but one thing I associate with Shakespeare is tragedy. Ironic tragedy. People undone by their own actions, like their own things coming back to haunt them. Like Macbeth is a perfect example of that. But in this case, and then you can see why that would play out or ring true for a lot of characters here. They're falling back to old habits, or their trauma and their loss is pushing them back, kind of regressing.
The same motivations that drive them also lead them to tragedy.
Yeah. But this was, and like I said, Sean, this is just one character. I focus on Dany. We talk about Cersei, but there's Brienne, there's Jaime, there's Jon, there's Tyrion, there's Sansa, there's Arya, everybody else. And, well, it's such a huge challenge because we have so many characters to talk about. We have less time, because the season is short and the episodes are longer. So, well, better not sit here and chat about it. Better get into it.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. Right on. Good call. So, for a couple of quick announcements that we must do, and then we will move on quickly to the events of the show. We have a new sponsor called Flick, and they're a great sponsor for us because they fit our needs really well. Shay is putting up on the screen here. You can join Flick through our link that's in the show notes, the episode description. And it's a cultivated discussion forum where you can ask us questions directly. We start forums and specific questions. This time, I've launched one question so far, and we'll have more added. Right now, it's, will there be an Iron Throne at the end? So log in, join, and answer that question yourself. See what you think. And you can always ask us direct questions, and Patreon questions get answered most of the time on live streams. Sometimes we answer them on later live streams or directly. But this should be an alternative way for people to raise a lot of good topics with us. And also, they're sponsoring the Intelligent Speech Conference in New York that at least I will be at. Shay might be there as well. And that's New York City on the 29th of June, featuring other podcasters like David Crowther of the History of England and Mike Duncan of the History of Rome. That's pretty exciting. It's the first time he's ever gone to a convention. Also, a quick reminder that our Patreon special episodes will go up to $5 a month at the end of the season. But if you join Patreon now, you get grandfathered in at the previously lower rate of $1 a month can get you all the bonus episodes. So join now and lock in that low rate. We also, our book, The Thrones Effect, that Ashaya and I contributed to Chapter 2, is out on paperback. We got our copy just a couple days ago. It's also got chapters by Gray Area and Secrets of the Citadel and Game of Thrones Academy and Ideas of Ice and Fire and Because Geek and Smokescreen. And, well, I'm doing this by memory, so I probably forgot one or two, but it's a great lineup, and it's a great way to support a bunch of different shows that you may not like all of those shows I listed, but I imagine that most of you like at least several of us.
Or at least us.
Yeah, or at least us. If not, then why are you listening to us now? So that's it for the announcements. Let's go to the funeral. So nothing like a funeral to remind us that this is a tragedy. No big surprises here, I suppose. It was very sad. But it raises a question to me, or a topic that I think is really interesting that comes up a lot in this episode, and it's how we react to the worst things as human beings and as characters that we're analyzing. Funerals are one of the few times when people are unambiguously sad. It's the time to be sad. But every other time, like when the person who you're having the funeral for dies, if it's in battle, a lot of times the reaction isn't sadness, it's anger. And those are two flip sides of the coin. I think that happens a lot. I wonder about that myself. I mean, think about this. Here's an example I came up with I think is a really good way of explaining this conundrum and how often we're on the border between angry and sad. And it just kind of maybe it's just a matter of how we've been conditioned or just our personalities. But let's say a friend shares a piece of bad personal news or a news event from out in the world on Facebook. And you use those reactions, the like, love. Sometimes I'm like, sad or angry? And I don't know which one to pick because I don't know which one is really, which one is more appropriate. And I feel them both.
I just pick WoW for everything.
Well, that's one way to avoid that conundrum.
Wait, Sean, are you Owen Wilson?
I mean, have you ever seen us together at the same time? Huh?
No, actually. and this thing I'm explaining right now really comes out with Dany. It comes out with other characters too, but Dany, it's really true. She weeps for Jorah, and many of us weep for her or with the other dead or both. And it's really good acting in the scene as well. By the way, I think Emilia Clarke has gotten a lot better. You know, I used to be kind of critical of her, but I've noticed in this season, I think she's been considerably stronger. And I'm no great judge of acting in the first place, so take that with a grain of salt. But I think she's been a lot better.
I don't necessarily want to disagree. I also don't feel like I'm a particularly good job critic of acting. If I were going to disagree, though, it would be that I think she was fine before. Like,
Okay,
man,
sure.
I have seen people complain, and I don't want to engage in it because I don't know enough. But I've never felt while I was watching like she's not doing a good job. I've never had that.
Right on. Okay. Well, that's all. I mean, the bottom line, that's strong. Like, if she's never disappointed you, that's good. That's good.
And sometimes characters who are in positions where they have to mute their emotions might be a little easier to say that they're not good actors, and that's what she was in for a long time.
Yeah, it's the material that they're given, and now she's given material where she's, you know, seeing people die that she loves and fighting and just given a wider range of emotions.
Yeah.
I think a couple episodes ago, I did try to make that point that you're like yelling and screaming angrily, while it might invigorate a crowd, right? Might be more obvious and clear that acting's happening there. I'm less impressed by that than I am by subtlety. Like just the slightest little movement of a lip or an eyebrow. I think those can be more difficult to execute. Does that make sense?
But and getting back to my original point here with this topic is that Dany usually reacts angrily. She doesn't grieve immediately. Her grief comes later. She is oh, that's what it is. I fight back. It was in that scene with Tormund where he's just saying, Jon fights and fights and fights. Dany does too. She's a different kind of fighter. Hers is more of a lot of times more of a perseverance because she's not a warrior. You know what I mean? But she doesn't. She's just like Jon. She does not give up, and that's something they really have in common. And a lot of times it's fueled by this passion.
This is reminding me of a line that I read in the book.
Good.
Theon thought to himself when he's trying to seize Winterfell, better to look. What did he say? Better to look foolish than weak.
Yeah.
And I don't know how good or true of a thought that is, but we see it in a lot of characters. Like Dany, I think we see it in Sansa, even characters we want to like, you know.
They share that sentiment, even if they don't necessarily think the world should work that way. They admit it does.
Yeah.
And can't deny that. Jon's speech here, really good. I was like really impressed. He had so much more gravitas and authority in his speech than I had really remember him having before. And if you're looking for deep clues, this is like Jon having some subconscious ambition or duty or feeling that he should have the throne. Well, he's very kingly in this moment, and I think they were maybe give the show a little credit for bringing this up, because immediately in the next scene we start to get some of that as well. People kind of talking to him like a king. They're like, that's our man, you know. So it feeds into the next scene, which is Dany feeling kind of isolated and starting to realize that the North isn't fully behind her, or that they're more behind Jon, and that makes her uneasy. So we'll move on to that in a second. There, do you have any thoughts on Jon's speech?
Nothing particular. I thought that it was a fine resolution of given the time that we have. Right. I think I mentioned last episode. I really want to see people coming to tears. I want to see people like having a discussion. I want to see Dany and Missandei in a room by themselves, telling a story about that one time when Jorah, blah, 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 and her breaking down. Like, I feel like there's so much opportunity for real drama they don't have time for. We got to get to the next action scene. You know? So it's the nature of the beast, but the speech checks that box, I guess, you know.
Okay. Well, let's take our first set of questions from Thomas Pappas. At the risk of wading into predictions and theory waters between now and the end of the series, is the next great battle we have to look forward to the great dance battle between House Beard and House Wortman at Ice and FireCon 2020? That's entirely possible. Related question. Alan Carstairs says 1,000 viewers equals one dancer, 2,000 viewers equals two dancers.
Oh,
we did. I think we kind of did agree to that before. So, yeah, some dance-related questions. Yes, of course, Dance of the Dragons or Dance of the Podcasters.
By the way, I've already got a song decided on. When I'm Small by Fantagram. That's what we're looking forward to here.
Yeah,
I would enjoy that as well.
Cool. From Power Scissor, just wondering if everyone thinks Jaime really broke bad again or going to end Cersei. I'm going to save that question for later in the
Yeah, I
episode
feel
because we have a lot.
Yeah,
we have a lot
we'll
to
talk
say about
that.
that. But short answer, I don't think he's intentionally going to end Cersei, but that may be what happens. Sandy Stark. Did you find it weird that Arya talks about the importance of family and in literally the next scene leaves without saying goodbye? Yeah, that was a little weird. But everyone else was leaving too. I guess she didn't say goodbye to Sansa on screen, but she probably should have. Maybe that just happened off screen, but I don't know. It's a little odd.
Yeah, you gotta assume a lot of stuff happens off screen. That said, I'm frustrated that we don't see it, but it seems like she should have said bye to Gendry. She should have said bye to Jon. She should have probably other characters that are part of this world that we haven't been introduced to because they're not relevant enough to the big plot. But I'm okay with it. I see the irony, but I'm okay with it.
I think Arya's deal is not to be around each other. It's to be loyal to each other and to uphold each other, I think. So in a sense, as long as, he doesn't necessarily have to say goodbye to be loyal to her family and to fight for them. But that's not an argument against. It's just a mitigating factor, perhaps.
Think of how many people I do hypocritical things. I don't know how else to say it. Like how many people go to church and pray to God and then lie or sin in some way. Like people don't always live up to what they present as their standards.
Right on. From Ian Relaford, do you think the show will abandon Dany's pregnancy they were foreshadowing last season? I don't remember it being foreshadowed, to be honest. It didn't seem like they were maybe talking about the possibility, but I don't know if it rose to the level of foreshadowing. And Jon and Dany have stopped sleeping together, so yeah, I guess it's just not going to happen. But it would have been interesting if they had done that, but also the time compression would have made that difficult. Especially, and having Dany and Cersei pregnant also, maybe that's a little weird.
I don't think it's too much I'm not sure I expect this, but it's not hard at all. It's literally just, look how quick we found out Gilly was pregnant. It's just one line of dialogue, one hug, one line, and
that's
all
true.
of a sudden, one look in their eyes, and now we got to reevaluate everything,
Yeah, okay, that's fair. A couple super chats from Sir Malthia of the House Begonius. We have a couple of questions from you that you sent in that we'll get to a little later that you sent on Patreon. Thanks for that. Abraham Gabeyu, super chat without a question. The Dude Von Dude. I think some of these are free super chats from YouTube Premium, so thank you very much for those. That is a thing that we discovered last week, thanks to Stephen Stark, our Hand of the Queen. And yeah, if you're using YouTube Premium, aka YouTube Red, it used to be called, apparently you get a free super chat. I don't know how many you get, 1 per month, 1 per week, but we appreciate anyone who wants to send those to us.
I believe it's 2 per month.
2 per month? Okay, cool. Right on. Well, that's good. Well, certainly, yeah, definitely appreciate it if you want to spend them on us. From Dornish Dan. Jaime is Shakespearean. His heart is in conflict with itself. His conscience is active. He's improved, but he can't forgive himself for evil acts. The King's Landing return, redemption, or drug relapse. Yeah, again, we're going to have a lot to say about Jaime and Brienne, so we'll keep all that together in one discussion, but this is a very good take, and I agree that the Shakespearean stuff I brought up at the beginning is a lot to do with Jaime. Very much to do so. Like he almost can't live with himself, and it's not uncommon for people to feel disgusted with themselves immediately after having sex. So there's a lot to unpack with that. So we'll hold off on that for now.
He's also not sure of who himself is.
Yeah, very, very true. He's torn between 2 worlds, or 3 maybe. Chris Trombley, do you think Arya will take another face at King's Landing? If so, who do you think it will be? We don't have a lot of time devoted to Arya in this episode because so much of it is just prediction based, and we try to save the predictions for Saturday. But this is a fair question that doesn't revolve around us using trailers or spoilers, so we can make a prediction without advanced information here. So it's safe in that sense. I'm a little dubious of Arya killing Cersei because I feel like that's going to be Jaime. And I don't know that Arya will kill both Cersei and the Night King, but hey, it wouldn't be that big a surprise, But then again, if not, what is she going to do? Who will she kill? Qyburn, the Mountain? That's probably Sandor's job to kill the Mountain. So, because that's the thing is that, the Cersei's side lacks distinct characters, right? There's her. There's Euron, there's Cersei. Cersei twice. Cersei, other Cersei, Euron, Qyburn, the Mountain. That's it, right?
Yeah, so the captain of the Golden
Harry
Company
Strickland
had a line.
Yeah. So maybe Arya could kill Euron. That's another possibility.
Well, one of the things is that one of the people she would have killed before is just not there in the show these days. Obviously, Owen Payne.
True that, yeah.
That which is just someone we can't help but bring up because he was someone on her list that naturally she would have taken out otherwise.
That's true. And good story, by the way. He had a terminal illness, and that's why he left the show, but he had a miraculous recovery. He went on a tour. I don't know if he's still alive. This was so long ago. I think he is, though. Yeah, he went on a tour because he was a musician. He was like, I want to go out like my way. And his cancer, he had like this terminal cancer that relapsed. So, yeah, funny to say, good story. He had terminal cancer. But yeah, good ending as far as those things go. And
yes, because he is still alive.
Oh, cool. Checked. Excellent. That's great news. So too bad they didn't bring him back to the show, but so maybe Harry Strickland. I kind of don't think Euron either because it feels like that just like for story arc reasons, like let Dany do that or something. Someone who really or Grey Worm or someone who really suffered at Euron's hands. I don't know. We'll see what they do, but I don't think Arya. Let's put it this way: I don't think Arya is done with faces. I think there's at least one more face in her. Would you agree with that?
Probably. I'm kind of hoping not. Okay. Honestly, I don't really want it to happen. It's the more mystical and magical things are, the less excited I am by them. I feel like it gives them out I feel like it's an excuse for bad writing. They can write themselves into a corner and be like, "Oh no, this person's just Arya. She could just come out of nowhere and do things." I don't like it, but I feel like they set it up. I feel like episode 3 was a lot of showing how Arya's training in a past is coming into play now. And so why couldn't or wouldn't that happen with the faces also?
Yeah, okay. Also super chats from Glabdo5000, Dan Horries, and a few others who are showing love. Thank you very much, all y'all. Sylvia Sabrex says, Arya plot with Sansa to go kill Dany. Green eyes in this episode instead of Cersei. Lannister and family turns on Starks and family to be much stronger. Well, that would be a twist. That would be painful for a lot of people if Arya killed Dany. Wow. I gotta admit, didn't consider that one at all. And if Arya's going to steal a face to get next to Dany, there's a lot more faces that she could choose. But that would
less
maybe
than
involve less than there were, and that would
Jorah's,
and that would possibly mean killing that person to take their place, which I don't think she's about to go do that necessarily. But hey. That is possible too.
If you pause it at just the right moment, I don't want to make this joke. You see Arya like run up and grab Missandei's head and run off. I shouldn't have gone there.
Too soon. But by the way, reminding her of her death, that is kind of what I had in mind with Cersei. Except because they cut away right when the gratuitous moment happens, but then you see that she's definitely dead. Of course, behind Tyrion at one point you can kind of see the blood on the ground. So there was actually
it was gruesome. Yeah,
it was a little more gruesome than it first seemed.
Sean, you were talking about too soon jokes. Someone in the chat was like, noticed that you guys didn't have your dragons on your mics in this episode, and I said neither does Dany.
Oh. Yeah, I can't put the green dragon back up. We still have the red one.
I didn't make it. I don't know who to give credit for it, but there was an image of Cersei drinking a cup of wine. I thought you had 3 dragons, and it's an image of Dany. Like, I thought you had 3 children.
Ooh. So, let's see. Next question from Black-Eyed Lily. Did Arya want to leave quietly, especially from Jon? That it seems like yes. I'm not entirely sure why, but, she's just not big on goodbyes. I don't know. It's tough. She is kind of a quiet person.
I don't need many allies. And while we understand now, right, she's proven herself, but there's a difference between her running around checking people off her list than there is ruling a kingdom.
Yeah.
You do need allies if you want to rule the kingdom.
Yeah, Arya's been very kind of, unfortunately, naive and rather snotty about some of these things. The same thing that happened with Sansa when she's like, well, that's not any way to build a consensus. Well, it does if you cut their heads off. Like, what? That's ridiculous, and this is... She kind of did the same thing here, where it wasn't nearly as over the top, but she was like, "Well, I don't need many allies." Like, you don't, Arya, you badass. But
and to be fair, it is a natural way people behave. I behave this way sometimes when some sort of argument, something contentious is being discussed. A lot of times, you come up with a clever quip, and it helps make your point. But there's an argument against it.
Yes.
And sometimes the argument against it is difficult and nuanced and complicated. And when you have your clever quip, it's a little unfair.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of what's happening to Jon here. They understand his point. They're not really being fair about it.
They're not.
They should understand his point.
Yeah. From anime lover Nicole, there was lots of talk about the future and kids. Gilly being pregos. Could maybe an Arya next Stark or Brienne next Tarth be pregnant? I mean, we definitely can't say they're not pregnant. man, would that be something for Brienne to get pregnant from Jaime? That would be really eesh. There's some interesting things they could do with that, and they wouldn't be untragic, probably. Arya, I kind of think that's unlikely, but like logistically speaking, it's got to be considered possible. But for story reasons, I kind of doubt it.
I feel like Arya is the type of person that she could get rid of her child if she wanted to.
Yeah, she doesn't want to have a kid.
She wouldn't. If she didn't want to have a kid, I don't think she would have any issues with doing that.
Yeah, that's true. Brienne maybe though.
But I also don't think Arya would have used any contraception type practices.
Yeah, probably not. So the next section, or the first...
By the way, a lot of people say the seed is strong. A lot of people chime in.
Of course they do. The seed is strong. Yes, so Arya should be pregnant because the seed is strong. I didn't think of that. Of course she's pregnant. Okay, so I'm calling this next section sad, happy, sad. And what I mean by that is we're sad for the funeral, happy for the party, and then sad after all that because there's the parting of ways and the devolving back into infighting and politicking and intriguing that happens so quickly afterwards.
Is the word sappy actually a mashup of sad and happy? Is that...
Whoa.
It can't be.
I don't know. But man, you blew my mind there.
Anyway.
Whoa. I can't talk anymore. You're going to have to take over. So no one is...
both mics.
No one is surprised that Tormund is the life of the party. No one at all. Har. Nicely crafted scene, though, because his cheering was used to advance the plot. That was really clever. I like that a lot. He's cheering for Jon. Like, he cheered for Dany, too. Cheer for the Dragon Queen. Like, it wasn't... But then immediately, and she goes, and she plays it off like a good, host person should be. She's like, and cheers to the champion of Winterfell. And everyone really goes nuts. Yeah. And then Tormund starts cheering for Jon, and you start to realize that Dany's like kind of isolated. She doesn't have her... Missandei's still alive, but she just lost Jorah, and she's not a Northerner. That's the main thing, is she's not a Northerner, and everyone really, really loves Jon. And you can't blame them. Like, there's nothing wrong with them loving Jon. They've known him longer. He's fought for them longer. And yeah, Dany did a lot, though. But still, they know Jon better.
There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, a lot.
Two quick things I want to say. We'll see how quick they are. One is that I think the editing of that whole scene, of that whole feast, is really good. The flow from character to character.
Yeah,
I really liked how they pieced that scene together. But also, it's not just that Dany is a Northerner or she's an outsider or all these other things. She's not a man.
Yeah.
For better or worse, that's one thing that's going on here.
Yes.
And
Tyrion
I don't
brings
even
that
know,
up later. Yeah, it's not us saying, oh, she's not a man. It's the people in the setting that devalue women rulers, and that matters in terms of how politics play out. We, of course, to be very clear, do not think she's lesser.
I was getting...
Two things here I just want to point out. One is that Tormund is one of the people, and obviously the wildlings are have a little more parity there.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But two, Arya is not at the feast, and I would have been very curious to see how much she was lauded.
Oh. They did cheer her, but
they cheered her, but she wasn't there. So, if she were there, would Tormund or someone else have hyped her up?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I was just curious about that. She also isn't a ruler, and is a Northerner and all these other things. But I made my mind spin.
Yeah, good point.
I was groaning as Tormund was going on and on. Almost everything he said, all these accolades he's trying to give Jon, like, that also applies to Dany. Everything.
Yes.
What kind of crazy man gets on a dragon? I'm like, hold on, Dany got on a dragon. Dany did it first.
And like I said at the beginning, she keeps fighting and fighting and fighting. That's the exact same thing Tormund said about Jon. It's just that they've witnessed Jon do it more than they've witnessed.
Do it more, I guess.
They didn't see Dany. I mean, Dany even says, in Slaver's Bay, they cheered me like this, but not here. They don't know me as well here. And because they witnessed all this great thing she did. They witnessed her free the slaves. They witnessed her unite. So they witnessed her rise from Khaleesi to do all these amazing things. But these are stories to the Northerners. They didn't see it.
And again, I want to give credit to the filming, the cinematography, the editing, the music, just the construction of this moment, because I was starting to expect, I'll say, the way this is going, for Dany to kind of like assert herself, try to get some credit. But then I started to realize, like, it'll seem so petty. How's she going to do this? There's no way she just can't get in here with this, you know? And as that's going through my mind, there's this shift in tone, the focus of the camera, the lighting on Dany, the shift in music. and you kind of realize it, and it kind of cuts to her looking at the different groups of people, like Jaime and
It
Tyrion,
reminds us,
this
yeah.
bond, this family, and their enemies even. Like, how could she ever really trust or expect these? And then, like, Jon and all them, and it's just, yeah, I really felt her.
It was great.
Her
isolation.
isolation,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever.
It was great. Yeah, I totally agree. The shift in the tone of the music and her just looking around, it really, like you said, those were pictures that said thousands of words because you knew what was going through her head, or at least had a general sense of it.
And
yeah,
it was
really
a sort
powerful.
of subtle acting.
Yeah.
Compared to like, yelling. It's not that that's not good acting, I guess. I'm not a super expert, but I was more moved by that subtle shift in her face and the back and forth of what she's observing
Yeah.
than the more obvious, loud moments of acting, you know.
Now, on the other side is how powerful this was for Dany. There was a little bit of comic relief that was super easy to miss. And no, I'm not talking about the Starbucks cup, but that is kind of funny too. But when you rewatch the episode, assuming you do, pay attention to Sandor Clegane when Dany calls out Gendry. Because, of course, at first, that scene is presented like, oh, what's going on here? She's calling out the rebel lord's son here. Like, what's going on? And then it's a good thing. You're like, oh, cool. But everyone stops eating and looks up. Except Sandor. He's still just shoveling food in his mouth. Doesn't give a crap what's happening.
He rolls his eyes a little, maybe.
Yeah,
like
it's
the extent of his concern.
It's hilarious. Because then they actually cut over to him when people are cheering, and then it's explicit that he's not paying attention.
when they cheered for Arya, he did give it like,
he's like, yeah.
I guess you guys can go ahead.
He's
and
like, yeah, I'm cool with that one. Yeah.
I'm not standing up or anything.
Yeah,
But.
even old cynical Sandor will can be like, yeah, he'd give a nod for her there.
A couple more notes on Dany and the Gendry moment specifically.
Yeah.
Even when it's positive, I've made this point a bunch of times. We talked a lot, especially last season, about how Jon just like calls everyone. I've watched too much Office. Everything relates to the Office. Jon calls everyone into the conference room, makes some bold announcement. And everyone's like, what? Wait, hold on. Even if Jon's right about things, he didn't confer with anyone first. Dany just did the same thing there. Like, it probably is a good plan. If she had everyone meet and say, hey, you guys, I'm going to make Gendry Lord of the Storm. Like, everyone would be like, yeah, good call. But it seems like she should at least mention this plan to all of her close. Someone might point out, like, Tyrion just promised the Reach to Bronn, right?
Yeah.
When does he tell this to Dany? Well, how does Dany know that someone didn't already make some promise about the Stormlands? They don't freaking talk to each other about anything until they're in public.
I think it's fair to make those I don't agree with you on this one, because this isn't a decision that's anyone else's business. It's her call only. I agree that maybe she's to ask her ally, her allies about it, or her advisors. But for all we know, she already did talk to Varys. She clearly didn't talk to Tyrion.
Suppose, yeah.
Like,
but
this is the kind of stuff that we wouldn't have. It's not important for us to show this off screen.
Yeah.
Right? It is important for us to show it off screen with Jon and Sansa having this conversation in public because they went so badly in public, and they should have been private first. I don't agree that this should have been private first. This is completely the Queen's
even if she did
call.
think at this moment and went ahead and did it, I guess
it's also really important to do in public.
I agree. I don't think it was a bad decision. I just think this and many other things they should talk about beforehand more.
Well, I kind of agree, but it's still a fair point about the show not having time to do all that. You just don't have enough time for that. They have to cut some things. This is something that comes up a lot, I think, is that we don't pay. Yes, it's easy to add scenes, but one time that I think people do this a lot is they say, why didn't they, shoot more fire arrows? Well, probably each fire arrow was probably like $3,000. Like that. Like, it's not that simple, 2 extra minutes of a battle scene is like crazy expensive. So I think it's easy to make that argument when we're talking about budget, but it's also just time constraints are real too. But it's not. That doesn't mean it's wrong to wish we had more.
Which is why we bring up when we think something could be one line or two, and relatively easy. Tyrion's already right there with Dany, and he before she does it, she like looks over at him and says, "Should I legitimize Gendry?"
But that ruins the surprise.
It ruins
the
surprise.
The surprise in the moment is her being like, "Oh, is she going to get mad at him?" But then she does like that. Just ruins.
Yeah,
the
that which is the dramatic effect. Yeah,
I understand a lot of things they do for the cinematics of it. I actually do.
There's no cinematics for the Jon Sansa thing that you complained about. So I agree with you there, because there's no cinematic reason to like. That's just a discussion they're having about how to handle things.
Well, and also they're in private already. They're not making an announcement to everyone gathered.
That's true. So that was kind of interesting. I like the way they played that out. And there's a lot of other characters in this scene. So let's talk about for a second Sansa and Sandor. this was for some people this was a touchy moment, and it's always like whenever sexual assault is referenced in a show, you got to be a little careful. And I wasn't sure whether this was handled well or not. I just kind of held my opinion back. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not a sexual assault survivor. I'm not an expert. I don't know anything about this. So I just waited. Well, turns out it's very authentic. It bothers a lot of people, but there's also a lot of people who say this is exactly, actual survivors who have said this is absolutely 100% accurate. That's how they see it. Because, and if I can try to explain it the way they did, it's more about owning what you are. Yes, you've been traumatized. Some people saw that she was thanking them for this trauma. Like, no, she's not thanking them for it. She's just saying this is who she is now. She's like, yes, if I hadn't had these things happen to me, I wouldn't be a little bird. She's thankful for not being a little bird. She's not thankful for being raped. She's not thankful for being brutalized. She's thankful for the strength she got from it. But she could have gotten that strength other ways, But the point being that it's who she is now. Right or wrong what happened to her? Well, definitely wrong what happened to her, but it's who she is now. There's no changing that. And so she's owning it and using it. And a great line from the book that I think applies here is, a lady's courtesy is her armor. Well, now her trauma is her armor. She's using it to make herself stronger. It's making the best of a bad situation. I think it's very much a sign of strength. And apparently, from what like I said, talked to some real people, this is how they see it.
I can also imagine different people handle it in different ways, come out of it in different ways.
Yeah.
Even let's just say theoretically, everyone handles it in the same way and comes to the same conclusion. Do they do it on the same timeline? Do they stay that way forever? I don't. I'd also have a hard time relating to this. Don't know what the right way to present it on screen or to analyze the character. And I can imagine there's more than one way, and probably no way is going to make everyone happy. It is kind of tough. I mean, we are reminded that Sandor is not a nice person.
Extremely,
he's very curt and I'm going to say mean, inconsiderate about it or whatever.
Oh,
but guess what? That happens in the real world too, and survivors are going to have to figure out how to deal with that. And this is how Sansa's chosen. And it's
now to criticize. Now I do have some criticism here, which is that it maybe didn't come out so much in this scene, but it has come out in a lot of scenes that the lack of female writing and directing really comes out to play here. Because that's the thing, like Sean and I here, we don't know what this is like. It's a almost purely female perspective. Certainly, there's plenty of men who have been sexually abused, but even that said, a lot of times it's a different dynamic for a woman being abused than for a man. Not always, but a lot of times it's very different. So, regardless, we don't have the perspective on it, and that's why we just have to listen. And maybe the showrunners got it right by accident this time because they didn't seem to have a lot of women opinions, or maybe they asked some people. But still, that's why it's important, because it's not about having the best writer in the writing room. It's about having the best team of writers. Like, do you want 5 centers on your basketball team? What good is take the 10 best NFL players of all time? That'd make a bad team because they'd all be quarterbacks or 2 defensive ends or something. Like, that would be a shitty team. So it's the same thing with writing. You need balance. You need diversity, because diversity gives you real people's real experiences are brought into play instead of guessing what those real experiences are like and sometimes getting them badly wrong. Not in this case, but sometimes. All right, off my soapbox. Tormund. Let's talk about Tormund. Actually, not Tormund yet. Let's talk about Jon leaving Ghost. Let's talk about another sad moment. Very sad.
Let's not talk about it.
Myself and a lot of pet owners really feeling it. But I think this is a budget thing too. They've had it's really hard for Jon to pet Ghost. The CGI is difficult. Like, the fur is really hard, especially with Ghost having all these injuries. And gotta admit, Jon's right. Don't take Ghost south. That's not a place for him. It didn't work out for any of the wolves that tried to go south, literal or figurative.
It didn't work out very well for any of the Starks either.
Well, that's what I mean, literal or figurative. The Starks or their wolves, just bad. It just didn't go well. Lady didn't even make it all the way to King's Landing. Ned died there. Now Jon's going. So this is maybe a happy ending for Ghost as far as happy endings go. It's never happy to part from one's master, but maybe he'll become Tormund's buddy, and Tormund seems like he'd be a good pet owner, and I don't know. He does deserve to live free in the wild. Patron Growl Tiger asks, can direwolves ever be pets? Maybe not. So having him run free in the north might be better. I don't know.
I did feel like he should have pet him. He should have nestled his face in his mane and held
maybe
him
it wasn't worth the budget for them to do that.
I think so. I think I almost feel like it would have been better to not even have Ghost in there than to do it like this.
I like Jon less after that scene.
A lot of people did.
I definitively was like, that is messed up. Even if you could say he said goodbye, but like, okay, you said goodbye to your doggo once, like do it again.
Yeah, pet your
dog. But also like, why? Like, just leave him in Winterfell. Like he has Sansa had a dire wolf once before, and they don't anymore. Arya did too. Like, why wouldn't Ghost go with Arya or Sansa? I don't know. It's just CGI. I could go on.
Yeah, I also did try to come up with some reasons. I can see, like, for CGI production reasons why they can't have him going along with Jon all over the place. But that still doesn't explain why you can't just leave him in Winterfell.
That's true.
And maybe I had the thought also, like, taking him south might be irresponsible or problematic. Like, even in North, even with Jon around, before we started to, like, realize he's not there enough, it started being sort of a problem. Ghost would still kind of just run off on his own. He would go hunting or scouting or whatever.
Yes.
Well, that's a little harder in a bigger population center. Does that make sense?
Much harder.
And that started me thinking about that was a problem for Danish dragons too. They're just going to randomly kill people's cattle or even kill people. And Ghost might do that. People might just hunt him down because he's hunting there.
That might
I could see problems with it. But
part of the question here, why they asking to be pets, because that's part of the problem, yeah.
But still, with all that, seems like he could stay in Winterfell. And should have got a better goodbye from Jon.
So, speaking of Tormund acquiring Ghost, it's basically a happy ending for him, assuming, there's nothing else for him, which is entirely possible. I think he's going to go comfort Brienne after Jaime left her, but I still don't think they're going to hook up. Anything to say about Tormund? You think? We'll talk more about it in the predictions episode, whether we actually will see him again. I don't have any particular predictions, just maybe that's a topic since it's something.
Yeah, my thought maybe is just like, I wonder if that's the last we're going to see of him, and I wondered the same thing or maybe if that's not the last we see of him, but the last that he and Jon will ever see each other.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering that about several other characters too. So.
Yeah. Let's talk real quick about Jaime, Tyrion, and Bran. We were hoping that they offered him the twins because it was a double castle, but they didn't catch that pun or didn't think it was good enough. A castle.
I mean, is the twins really that much?
No, it's not.
Better? It's just funny.
It's funny. It's not really two castles. I mean, it is two castles, but they're small. It's Highgarden is vastly better. I mean, Bran, Highgarden. Yeah, that's the right call. It would have just been funny if we had got that right.
I wanted Tyrion to offer him Harrenhal, and for Bran just to look at him like,
come on, dude. Like just punch him in the face again.
Try again. Yeah.
Now I am going to break your nose. So, I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about this scene. I really don't know what they're doing with it. It's a little weird, but I'm still going to reserve judgment until they see what they do with it. But it's been tweaked now. The arrangement happened, and then Jaime defected back to Cersei. So there's definitely like some gumming up of the works here. So I guess it's kind of on Tyrion to fulfill this bargain. Because I don't suppose Bran can collect it from Jaime now that he's, if he's truly abandoned Cersei. But I guess he could change his mind and come back and shoot Tyrion and try to collect a reward. I don't know. But he said he's done fighting. So I think maybe.
But not done killing.
Right.
So I feel like Bran, just like we said in the beginning, just has all the options here. He can do whatever he wants. Whatever side wins, he can kill or not kill. I feel like he's in a good position. Additionally, I feel like they're basically trying to address his character and have him not be in King's Landing interacting with Lena Headey. I think that's how I'm assessing the Bran scenario.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I can agree with that.
I certainly wouldn't be surprised if. I guess I should say even not that I wouldn't be surprised. I kind of expect for there to be sort of this assessment at the end where the chips are falling. I'm just kind of making things up just for my example, but Sansa's Queen of the North, Yara is Queen of the Iron Islands, Gendry is Lord of the Storm's End, Bronn is Lord of the Reach. We're gonna
never gonna happen, Sean.
I'm rooting for it.
He's gonna get killed.
He's gonna rename it Bron Garden.
You see the shirt I'm wearing, by the way. Just want to clarify.
Team Bron right here. Team Jerome. I'm sorry. Team Cooper. Or is it Darnell? I always forget which is which.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't. You're right. It doesn't. Jaime and Brienne. Let's talk about them. Let's see. Sorry, I missed a question here from Justin Ragsdale. How does the Bronn storyline make any sense unless they are setting him up to come back and save Tyrion or Jaime? Well, that's a good question, but I hesitate to say there's no other way for it to make sense because we can't possibly have thought of everything. But I am wary of how this plot could be resolved. I don't get a great feeling about it being satisfying, but we'll see. I'm still going to withhold judgment.
There was someone out there, I wish I could remember who it was, that had a theory, and I think they were applying it more to the Night King, but it could still... They were basically observing how many times you have two characters in a confrontation, a violent confrontation, and a third character from behind kills one of them. Like Howland Reed killed Arthur Dayne from behind when he was fighting Ned.
Yeah.
The wildling girl killed Carl from behind when he's fighting John. There's like 10 examples of this happening.
Of them, yes.
So I can easily imagine Jaime about to kill Cersei and it's only an arrow through the chest and Bronn standing with a crossbow. Something like that. I feel like they could easily be setting that up.
Okay. Let's talk about Jaime and Brendan then. That's a natural segue sort of to Jaime. So it's another example of going from sad to happy back to sad. Damn. So much niceness there. Jaime knights her and then they have their moment of love and Jaime just reverts to his old habits. And it was maybe a little rushed, but I do find it to be authentic. At the beginning of the episode, I pointed out that, self-loathing after sex is not uncommon. I don't know. This is something that I don't know about for women, but for men, yeah.
Aziz, are you still a virgin?
O'Shea has taken me out of context pretty bad here. Anyway, so I can't speak for whether that's a thing for women or not. It probably is in some level, but I don't know for men, that's like a common enough discussed thing for like psychology wise. And so in that way it rings authentic, and he's doing a lot of these things that people have been saying all along. Like some of these things you said, you never really felt like he was redeemed. You felt like he's doing good things now, but it doesn't make up for the bad things.
I'm not sure. I'll say.
Okay, maybe that's fair.
Maybe it's to some people. I can't figure it out. Yeah.
And he's agreeing. He's like, I pushed a kid out a window. And then he says all these things he did to get back to Cersei. Like he's saying they were all to get. He's like, I'm awful. He hates himself, and he's like, and he's also kind of like an addict. He can't quit Cersei, no matter how awful she is, no matter how wrong she is, no matter how much of a betrayal it might be to the people he just fought with. He just, but there's also the kid. So
here's another take on this, by the way.
Sure.
I wonder if this scene, I feel like as I run through it, I'm like, I'm not sure if it adds up. But I wonder if there's a parallel here with Tyrion and Shay. He's trying to separate himself. He's like, you need to stay away from King's Landing. You're going to die. I know you want to go down there. Stay here. Make her hate me for a minute, and I'm going to go down there. Whether he's going down there to save Cersei or to kill Cersei, he just doesn't want Brienne mixed up in it.
A lot of us thought the same thing, but the interviews with Nikolai Coster-Waldau afterward put a serious dent in that theory.
Oh, really?
He thinks he's going because of the things I just said, and not because he's trying to stop Brienne. However, that doesn't mean he won't kill Cersei, because he can still be disgusted with her once he gets there. There's this conundrum with Euron and all this other stuff, human shields, all this other stuff. She's going to be doing worse things than she's ever done, even though she's done awful, awful things.
He also could still be conflicted. He could still flop again once he gets there. The journey there, imagine what he might be going through his mind. It's not like he's going to be there tomorrow, right? Yeah. This is weeks of a journey. It's going to be an adventure to its own. It could have been a whole episode.
It's true. It's true. Another reminder, this is all tragedy, because there's just no way this comes out good for him. No chance. Zero. I don't think there's even a 1.1% chance that Jaime has a happy ending. It's real hard. We'll see, but feel pretty confident about that one. I'm same with Cersei, obviously. Even if Cersei wins, which is super, super unlikely, she's not going to be happy. She'll just be like, well, I don't have any enemies left to fight for now. She'll be satisfied.
Jaime wasn't exactly happy when he got back. He sort of won at the twins, and then got back after Cersei sort of won by killing all her enemies.
He was not
happy.
And
Jaime was like, all right, good to be home. And Jaime was like, geez, I don't know about all this.
He sees the smoke from the sept and is like, oh my God, what has happened here? So, but he's not the only one heading south with the queen in mind, or with a queen in mind. In fact, lots of people are heading south, and well, we talked about Jon leaving, and it's time to come back to that again. I've called this section Awakening Dragons, and it's very symbolic. He leaves Ghost. He shares his secret he heads south. It's very much abandoning his Stark heritage and embracing his dragon heritage. Even if it's not explicit, because he's going about it in a way that's a little bit, maybe not confusing, but a little uncertain. So in a way, he's being awakened as a dragon. But really, Dany, I think, is more literally awakening as a dragon, because, and I mean, like, in the sense of Viserys saying, you don't want to wake the dragon, do you? Because her fear and anger is really coming to the surface, and that no matter who you are, fear and anger can lead you astray. And of course, as we already said, with Dany, it has the potential to be worse because she has so much power. But Cersei is the one who needs that lesson now. Like we said earlier, Cersei is trying to goad Dany into mistakes by hurting the one she loves and putting innocents in harm's way, which does seem like a good strategy. But as we see here, if she pushes it too far, Dany might just be like, I don't care anymore, I'm coming for you. And then, well, that could still lead her to make a mistake. But it's an interesting back and forth there.
It is a little harder for her to just, like, okay, so a fear, right? A thought we had was that Dany might just get pissed and just burn King's Landing. Just forget Tyrion's plan, forget ruling afterwards, forget helping the people. Like, I'm just mad and I want revenge and I'm killing Cersei. And we could see that. And we could also see, even if we understand or even if that's justified, it might cause people these bubbling concerns about Dany being leader might suddenly be like, oh, crap, no way. No, you see what she just did? She could not be, we cannot have her, right? But she might not even be able to do that now. There's scorpions all over King's Landing. She might not just have the option, I'm just going to burn it down, I don't care. She might not have that option. So.
Yeah, I see a lot of people that were talking about, they're like, oh, they just had to kill Rhaegal off to even things up a bit. I'm like, I don't know if that's true. I would not fly Drogon to King's Landing right now. That dragon would be dead in seconds. Like, I think she might be underpowered right now. I think Cersei might have the upper hand military, especially because she's the one on defense protecting a fixed position with walls and stuff, that the dragons are no longer so effective. Well, the dragon is no longer so effective.
There's a lot of complaints you could get into the details of the action. You know what I mean? Like, she could have, like, flown around from behind and burned the ships. The scout ship should have seen that they were there. Varys should have got a bird, something. But the point is, what they need to convey here is that the dragons aren't the trump card that they used to be.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That's the bottom line. They needed to kill Rhaegal to show us the danger to...
If they were older, the scorpions might not even be effective against them. Yeah. I mean, from book canon, they probably wouldn't be. But these are young dragons, and their scales aren't that hard yet. There's some evidence in the books that you need to hit them in the eye or something like that, but that wouldn't be true for the younger ones.
There's also a big parallel I want to point out here to when Jon was confronting Ramsay, and Ramsay sends Rickon out there to kind of goad him in. This is Cersei's doing the same thing on the Sunday. Like,
this one wasn't a trap, but it was a goading.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that so far, we'll see what happens. Yeah. We'll see. Like the opening moment of the next episode might be Dany getting on her dragon and like, diving into Burnham, but I feel like, and I'm going to get into a little bit more of a tangent here, but I feel like Dany is actually showing an amazing amount of constraint, especially when you think about everything she's gone through, right? She's already kind of feeling isolated among her people, whatever that might mean, right? She is already, like, away from what has been her home and her people in this new continent, new weather. She has her children are dying left and right. Her authority is being challenged by people who could have, should have been her closest allies, Jon and Sansa, right? She's, in a way, like, her world is just, like, falling apart all around her. And now, like, her probably closest friend in the world was just beheaded in front of her. Like, what do we expect from her? Like, who thinks that they're not going to get mad and want to just burn in, even if it's suicidal, even if she, it was another neat moment. I wondered, oh shit, could you bring up this image? This might be a little out of context of where it was, but the one when she's, like, diving in towards Euron, and then there's this moment, this look on Euron's face where he's like, she's just gonna keep coming. Like, I think even if I shoot and hit that dragon, he's still gonna burn me to death. He's like,
he was impressed.
Fire.
He was a little impressed. Like, he's like, whoa.
That is not the shot I have of Euron.
Well, I guess it's a little out, like I said, out of context, but the ships lined up with all those things.
Just move forward.
Yeah, it's kind of suicidal for her to charge into that, but she might just not care. It was suicidal for Jon to charge in toward Ramsay. It was totally suicidal.
Yeah, it was very
did
emotional.
It anyway, right? So
it's emotional. That's the thing. Like, a lot of this is people ask some of these questions. Why this? Why that? Well, it's because she was emotional, or because she didn't know. For example, like, why didn't she fly around and attack the ships from behind? Because she didn't think of that. So, and because that would be a lot more budget, frankly. That would be a lot more budget. I mean, it's just that simple.
Also, that's... If we look at it, we could probably just prove me wrong, but they could have just done it differently. But they could just have like 4 ships on a backside face the other direction. Yeah. They could cover their rear with those same scorpions.
Absolutely. You know, so. And I don't have a problem with her not seeing them. I do have a problem with them, with the way that they've explained it behind the episode, which is that they forgot about the Iron Fleet, which is just lame. Like, that's not a good, like, as often as I defend things because I can think of a reason why it makes sense, that's just lame. Yeah. They didn't forget. That's come on. Euron's like one of the main enemies, and his fleet was at King's Landing, which is really close to Dragonstone. Like,
they even just had a war meeting where they accounted for it on the board. You know,
it's just silly. So that I have a real problem with that, and I don't have a huge problem with the surprise of it because, sure, the logistics of them hitting Rhaegal from that far away are a little silly, but I don't really care because I don't agree that them not being seen was unrealistic. They were on the other side of the island. The dragons would not be able to see them unless they went absurdly high, and there's not much reason to do that because they forgot about the Iron Fleet. That's the part that doesn't make sense. If they had not forgotten about the Iron Fleet, they would scout or look ahead or check, and then none of this would have happened. But so that's the part they cheated on, is the fact that they
didn't scout ahead, right?
Yeah, but the fact that they were surprised makes sense given that they didn't scout ahead, and the fact that they were surprised can explain the dragon shots. Like, it shouldn't have been that accurate. But if you're firing that many shots at a dragon, a couple of them hitting, makes sense. Yeah, that's not unreasonable. But another question is why did she charge? Well, like you said, she got really mad, and then she realized that, oh wait, I can't do that, and she backed down and turned around. So she was mad and wanted to kill her enemies who just killed her child. Like, and then she's like, wait, that's a bad idea. So, and this is good. This is a little bit off where I wanted to go, but we can rearrange things a little bit. So let's talk a little bit more about her state of mind and where she's at. Tyrion says, or Varys says, I'm concerned about her state of mind. And Tyrion's like, we're her advisors. We're supposed to worry about her state of mind. And he's right that her state of mind is off kilter because so much terrible things have happened to her. And this is where it's super hard to understand Dany's perspective. Like, super, super hard. Sure, Varys is scared because he worked under Aerys and Robert, and the lazy king who slept around constantly and was a drunken embarrassment is awful, but he wasn't as awful as the Mad King. Now, because one thing Robert never did, or you could say did, was start wars. He didn't start wars. He ruled so badly that wars were inevitable later, probably, which is almost as bad. But Varys did want to remove him, but there was no one to replace him with. There was no other claimant. There wasn't like, if we kill Robert, then we can install
Stannis?
Baby Joffrey or Stannis? Yeah, it just wasn't like, that's not good. With Aerys, though, it's more complicated because that was Rhaegar. There was an argument that Varys should have helped the people who were trying to remove Aerys because it doesn't necessarily work with what he's doing now. It doesn't necessarily add up. But that was 40 years ago. Varys could be a different person now. I don't have a big problem with that. Yes, it's inconsistent, but it's not unrealistically inconsistent because people change. More on that in book to show, because talking about Rhaegar and this other stuff is in Aerys and Varys. There's more detail there that isn't part of the show that we don't need to get into.
My issue with Varys is maybe a couple parts to it. Is I was disappointed because I thought that moment that we talked about earlier, where Dany's kind of like realizing her situation and frustrated by it, and walks up. We see Varys see this, and in my mind, what I expected there was Varys was going to go console her, maybe on her behalf, go talk to, hey, John, you need to be careful. Think about how Dany feels right now. I thought he was going to like put these fires out, but instead he's like, we got to take out Dany. You know what I mean? He like Tyrion, who it seems like Varys should trust, is telling him like, no, look, I believe in her. Varys is like, I don't care what you have to say.
To be fair, he didn't say that until she made the comment about those tens of thousands of people don't matter, like, or it's fine for them to be collateral damage. He didn't actually turn on her until that, and that's consistent with how he's been. He has always been in the show about the small folk, so I wasn't disappointed by that.
Right,
I was disappointed by that.
They even talked about the idea of having Mary, and Varys like discounts that because she won't want to share. They won't compliment. She's too strong for Jon. Stuff like that. All right, let's just say that's true. wait for whatever coup you might be planning till after. Let's beat Cersei first, and then if down the road there's conflict between Dany and Jon, didn't deal. Like if you want,
I don't think he said otherwise.
To imply he's going to kill. It seems like he wants to do it right away.
Which
even makes sense because he wants to do it before she goes and burns all the innocent people in King's Landing.
I don't think so. I really don't think so because there's just no way. I mean, there's no way that's going to work out better for if they leave those people to Cersei. Like how? Like is Varys real? I mean, I guess you could be right. I just don't see Varys like saying, "Okay, well, Cersei's a better choice."
Like Cersei's not going to burn them all up with dragons. She might burn them out with wildfire, I guess. But,
I mean,
Varys doesn't necessarily know or expect that, but he's worried about what those dragons are going to do imminently. I sense that he's going to do something soon.
Well, there's only 2 episodes left, so yeah, it has to be soon.
Right, and also we're told by Melisandre he's going to die, so I kind of expect he's going to get caught trying to do something subversive. That's where I think this is
that makes sense.
So.
And to be fair to some of these points you're making, or not to be fair to them, just to maybe back them up a little more. Dany's, if she loses her temper, gets upset. That's nothing like being insane, like Aerys. It's not even in the same ballpark. It's not even close. And well, if we take about that line where she thinks she's some person of destiny who's supposed to remove all these tyrants, that does sound a little insane. But is it in this world? No, it is not. She literally worked miracles. She literally didn't burn. She literally birthed dragons from stone, and that was a prophecy that she fulfilled. And she's had Red Priest telling her that she fulfilled this ancient prophecy. That's real, and it's not something we can grasp from the real world and understand how it would affect us if it was real here. She's
been a witness to other magical things too in the House of the Undying, and like it seems clear now, it's a public knowledge. Jon was killed and came back to life. So the idea of someone, and I've used this same defense for Stannis and Melisandre before too. Like if you believed with good reason, not you randomly because you're crazy, but if the people of Earth believed in magic or God or whatever because we saw it in a definitive, provable way, you might think twice if God told you to sacrifice your son. If you knew God was real, if you knew it was real, you might. Some people maybe they wouldn't, but it's not preposterous to think that Dany has a legitimate idea of her destiny. She's just some crazy woman. But even if you take away all these mystical elements that really exist in this world that might make her believe just like Stannis that he has to do whatever he has to do, even if you remove that element, there's still the other factor of the grief that she's gone through, the isolation that she's feeling, that she's a young person in the first place. That I think it's like who out there thinks they know exactly what Dany should be doing? Like, and you know what I mean? Like, who out there's gone through this scenario? And let's say we did. Let's say that the collective minds of everyone with time and insight and experience and education could figure out her plan. Let's say she did that exact plan. Wouldn't that be a little unrealistic?
Yeah, and also, frankly, some of the alternate suggestions in the show have not been really good suggestions. Varys suggests a siege and then getting the people to turn on Cersei. How does that not result in lots of innocent lives dying also? How does that not result in starvation? Like, that's not, I mean, some people would rather die quickly in a battle than that.
The people might turn on Cersei, right? Yeah. And all they have to do is wait outside for the people to turn on Cersei. Well, what it means for the people to turn on Cersei is thousands and thousands of innocent people. You're going to have common peasants with no weapons going and get armed knights with huge swords.
And they're only doing it because they're desperate and starving. Like, is that really, like, how's that better? I don't know. So you're right. Like, there isn't a good answer here. There is no sieging wouldn't work. Sansa says they should rest the troops more, but Dany says, well, while we do that, meanwhile they're getting stronger. And she's right. They have gotten stronger. Look at all those damn scorpions around the King's Landing. And I don't have a problem with that. Some people were wondered why they couldn't dig that ditch bigger. I had an answer for that. It was they didn't have the manpower to do it. The soldiers got there late. Takes a lot of time. Resources. It's dirt. It's frozen dirt maybe. Second of all, they don't have the manpower Cersei has. Cersei has the entire population of King's Landing conscript, which they did during the Battle of the Blackwater to make to make wildfire. Well, in the books they made the chain. They conscripted a lot of people to do a lot of stuff that's not possible in the North. The population just doesn't exist. There's more people in King's Landing than there probably is in the entire North. Before it was wiped out.
I think that they said that at one point.
I think you're right.
Like just the King's Landing itself
a million
has
people.
More population than all of the North.
Yeah.
But they have more than King's Landing. They have all the lands around.
Yeah.
And a lot of the population, a lot of the forces of the North just got killed.
Yeah. So I find that very credible. And in fact, I would find other things credible that were logistic, like manpower based, because I do believe that Cersei has a lot of manpower. Not as many, not a ton of soldiers, but a substantial amount. But the common folk manpower is pretty significant here. So let's regroup here and do a quick mid-roll and take some more questions, and then we've got a lot more to say. We still have Euron. We still have the scenes with Euron and Cersei. We still have a lot more about Jon, and I
want to get one quick thing in.
Sure.
From the because I don't think it'll come up another time. From the last week on little moment that we got.
Yeah.
That we went through sort of a scroll of the deaths from the prior episode without getting Melisandre. Like they just thought I was upset by that, man. I feel like she didn't get her due.
Yeah, it's funny because they didn't seem to know what happened to her. Only like Davos seemed to know. Like one person was like, he's like, Tyrion. Remember he talks to Tyrion. He's like, I never got a chance. He's like, did you? He's like, I wanted to kill her. He's like, did you? He's like, never got the chance. She did it to herself. Or her God did. And then they had that conversation about Lord of Light does his thing and then just leaves and doesn't tell us what he wants. And they're like, damn it.
When that scene happened, I thought we were going to go down a line with Davos. Right? I thought we were going to get some storyline of him trying to figure out what really happened to the Lord of Light or the Night King. Nothing. I felt the same way as him about the Lord of Light as I felt about that scene in the show.
Okay, so real quick mid-roll here. I want to say shout out to our sponsor, Shire Post Mint. Go to shirepostmint.com and use the code HISTORY for 15% off. And yeah, we've got a lot of cool coins from them. They got coins from Bravos, coins from history within Westeros, like old Iron Bank.
These old
Iron Islands coins.
They have their new pre-conquest series of coins.
Yeah, pre-conquest and lots of other cool stuff. They also have some Deaths coins like Eddard and Walder Frey and Joffrey, and they have coins from other fandoms. Conan, Stormlight Archive, all kinds of cool stuff. Wheel of Time, just really good stuff. Of course, the Lord of the Rings, hence the name Shire Post Mint. That's what they started with. And also some shout outs to our Queens of Love and Beauty and our Blood Riders. Forsaki, wielder of a Valyrian Steel Arak with a Dragonbone hilt. Kohel Koi, called Sunpiercer, wielder of a Dragonbone bow. Kokava the Tamer, wielder of the Wildfire Whip Gehenna. And aforementioned Queens of Love and Beauty. Erin, Lady of the Long Desert, names Emma of Starfall the Queen of Love and Beauty in sight of pods and men. And from the depths of Fleabottom, Lord Ken of House Hammer has declared for Queen Carrie, Fire of the North, who recovered Dark Sister from beyond the wall. Well, both Fleabottom and pods are quite relevant here. Fleabottom is in great peril with the Dany's army sitting outside. And of course, Podrick, who knows what'll happen for him the rest of the way, but he at least had a nice moment with a girl there at the festival, or the feast. Festival. All right, let's get into the second set of questions. From patron Ahmed Abdi. Are they portraying the beginnings of Mad Queen Daenerys, and is Tyrion really scared of her? I do think Tyrion is really scared of her, and I thought it was interesting how his defense of her being a little scary was a little muted when Varys is like, she's, all this fear stuff. And he's like, all good rulers should, inspire a little bit of fear. But he didn't say it with much conviction. Very notably, was kind of, yeah, but, it was kind of like he was losing the argument, but wanted to say something. But I do not think they're portraying the beginnings of Mad Queen Dany. I do not think she's going insane. I think that some people out in the story will see her that way. And Varys is clearly worried that she's going that way, but I don't think she's actually going to go insane, because insanity is, you don't usually go insane you can go insane from just repeated trauma, but I don't think this is the kind of trauma that would make her go insane. And I don't think that she's going to ever be anything like Aerys. But I do think we're supposed to see shades of that as a reason for characters to have concern.
In the past, going back to season 1 even, I remember thinking, trying to, especially because the story in general has lots of gray area. Characters that we think of as being good guys or protagonists, sometimes they do some shitty things. And some of the characters that start off being villains are like, oh, actually, I understand them now. There's a lot of that. And I went in kind of knowing that about the series. And so was looking for it in the first place. And I wondered sometimes about Dany, how she's kind of has this naive desire to be on the throne. She doesn't even know what that means. She tells her husband, and so he goes to war and rapes and pillages to raise an army for her, and she didn't realize what that was going to be. Yeah. So it never seemed like what they were doing is turning her into a villain. That never seemed like she was going to be. She seems to be a protagonist, if not a good guy, right?
Yeah.
Even if, like many characters who are protagonists, if not good guys, also do some make mistakes or do bad things or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do feel here these last couple episodes are pushing her towards, and I use the word villainous and realize I was using a bad word, more antagonistic. She might be becoming more antagonistic. Like we might feel like we want Jon to win, not Dany. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's what they're doing or if it's correct for me to interpret it that way, but I see that 2 episodes from now, we might look back and be like, oh, that's definitely what they were doing.
Yeah. And to be fair, too, I think there's something to be said about that meta about just what power does to people. This, being and having all this power is corrupting, even for someone like Dany, even for someone like Jon, because there is some evidence maybe that Jon is subconsciously does want the throne. We'll get into that in a minute. We kind of skipped past it earlier when we got off into not a tangent, but diverted to another major topic that we maybe got to a little sooner than we intended. But hey, that happens.
Yeah, I do still have more thoughts on Jon and Dany,
or
Sansa and all that. Yeah,
we'll definitely get back to that. Here's a question from Sir Way, of course. A couple of your questions we're going to save for the predictions episode. They're a little more rooted towards that, but one of them here is that I think is particularly on point here is, whoops, I lost it. Here it is. During the funeral, did you catch Jon looking at Lyanna Mormont, but thinking about Lyanna Stark? I didn't think of that, but that's a very interesting idea. They were lined up. Each kind of torchbearer was lined up with someone that was the most significant to them. And for some of them, it was... Arya lighting Beric, that made sense. She saved him, but they didn't exactly have a lot of closeness before that. Sansa for Theon, that was a beautiful moment. She puts the wolf pin on him, and her reaction was really authentic. Jon with Lyanna Mormont's a little, she's a northerner, he's a northerner, but they didn't have a strong personal connection. So, but the name recognition, that is interesting. I wonder if thinking about Lyanna Mormont, she thought about his own mother, who would have only been a few years older than Lyanna Mormont when she birthed Jon. So that's actually a great catch. I didn't think about that even a little.
Yeah.
Right.
There's it's one of the things that after watching it the fourth time, my fourth, by the way, go through this episode, I watching a funeral segment, I actually started to fast forward it. I'm like, all right, I got this. Let me get to that. I started thinking, there's probably a lot more to this, actually. I should look at this even more rather than skipping through it.
From Sir Matthew of the House Begonias, was there anything that ripped you guys out of the scene? For me, it was them burning the bodies with the armor still on that made zero sense to me. I don't know how authentic that is. I don't know if that's normal or not. It might be, but I
don't think it is, but they're keeping characters in costume. They wouldn't all stand at attention in full armor on boats either. But they're just presenting us these images.
So it's kind of to remind us, because it's the same reason they don't have people wear helmets, so that we know who they are.
Exactly.
You want them to still have their same outfits, so we, for the lesser attentive viewer should know. But if I had seen the Starbucks cup, that would have pulled me out of scene for sure. But I just didn't see it. I only found out about it after
4 viewings. I didn't notice it. So.
Yeah, it's in the feast scene, sitting next to Dany. Around, I think it's just before Gendry stands up, but I'm not sure exactly. Someone else will tell us more specifically. Also from Sir Matthew, I can't super chat right now.
By the way, just Google. It's literally a front page article on CNN.
I know they made a big deal out of it. But he says, I want everyone to listen to Terrapin Station by the Grateful Dead with Daenerys in mind. Okay, well, I will do that too. Terrapin Station, by the way, Terrapin is a name for turtle, and George R. R. Martin, big fan of turtles, so a couple of references there.
And we talked about it a little bit in our How the Game Ends stream, or the stream we did on 420, where we talked a bit about some songs that are referenced. So
he suggested that we do a Grateful Dead episode on just because there's so many references to it. That would be maybe something to consider for later down the line. We certainly don't have time for much else right now besides covering the show, but I definitely like that thought. Question from Radiance Bucknor. That is a cool name. Radiance Bucknor. Did you think it was a bad idea to revive the Baratheon name? Gendry may be loyal, but what about his descendants? No, I don't think it was a bad idea to revive the Baratheon name. You got to have a Lord of Storm's End, and it tends to work really well when people get to stay with something that are useful. The small folk, they like that continuity. Another Baratheon is like, same things, like there's always a Stark in Winterfell. There might be something mystical behind, there's always a Stark in Winterfell, but it's also true from a political sense that people have long enjoyed the Stark's reign because they've done a good job.
You could also apply that statement to X may be loyal now, but what about their descendants? It doesn't matter if it's Gendry or Baratheons or anything.
Well,
it's
I think
an issue.
The point is that if it was a different name, they wouldn't have the prestige and less ability to challenge the Targaryen name because the Baratheons were kings. And whereas some new name, if it was just, you're just Gendry of House, you're House Fleabottom, because that's where you're born. Like that would not have the same power behind it.
Reminds me of some of the talk about the Hightowers in that panel at Ice and Fire Con.
That's right, Hightowers, yeah. Okay, next question from Growl Tiger. Do the fan-prognosticated pregnancies align with these final episodes representing a dream of spring, i.e. a time of rebirth and regeneration? That's an interesting point, too. If we're going to get some sort of, like, happy ending type... Well, we know it's not going to be happy, but there'll be parts of it that'll be happy. Bittersweet means there should be some good things. Well, it doesn't have to mean that, but I suspect, given so many characters and plot lines, there'll be some, unabashedly positive things. And pregnancies... Yeah, I mean, some pregnancies would be just great. Some of them would be bittersweet, though. Like if Brienne was pregnant with Jaime's kid, that's not ambiguously good. That's like, oh, well, how does she feel about that? How does that, I don't know. She might be like cool with it because she gets to have a kid, and that's great. But she doesn't necessarily have to have Jaime around, but it's hard to say.
Someone did, quick note, have a zoom in shot of one of Sansa's outfits. It had these leaf patterns on it.
Ooh.
A dream of spring, they say.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's cool. I love it. Yeah, they do. There's a lot of hidden detail in those costumes. They do really good on that. Another one from Sir Matthew of House Begonias. Shea, I don't want to put any more work on you, but we do need the list of where to buy all the shirts you three wear every live stream.
So I put this in here so I could address this myself real quickly.
Cool.
That is a thing I would like to do. It requires me to have all of Aziz, mine, and Sean's shirts clean and washed so that I can see them. And then it requires me to find where they all actually came from, which I can do for the most part. But it's a little bit bigger of a task than you might envision because we have a lot of shirts. So that's just me saying I will get to it. But if you really need to know a specific shirt, just ask me, and I can always tell you a specific shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not like one site where we get all our shirts.
It's a big collection.
I can throw out a couple that I use often.
But no, this is the thing. They specifically want me to list like every shirt we have worn.
Oh, where that shirt came from.
Like a link to that shop. Yeah. It's a big thing.
Yeah, it would be
Some
fun.
of them are just not going to be available anymore, too.
Definitely.
Yes.
Some of them are out of print, for sure.
Yes.
Next question from Sean Raman. Do you think Night King knew of the prophecy and expected Jon to fulfill it? Meaning, keeping in mind at his ease that Jon was kept busy while not taking Arya seriously. In other words, he ignored Arya and everyone else because he thought Jon was the only one who could kill him, and thus ignored him. I don't think so, because if Jon was the one he expected to fill it, he would have killed him. He wouldn't have just been like, I'll send my whites out of it and make sure. I think he would have taken him more seriously. Yeah, Jon, as has been pointed out several times, Jon's been beyond the wall several times, and they never made a point of targeting him.
Like in the same scene where they're kind of trapped in the middle of the ice with the zombies all around.
Yeah.
When the battle starts the next day, the Night King throws a javelin at the dragon. So the dragon is moving in the air and far away.
Yeah.
And bam, one shot, one kill, right? Where the Night King, Jon was just sitting still on that island all night long. You just got to, just javelin after javelin, could have been lobbing it after. He could have killed, I feel like easily could have killed Jon there and didn't for whatever reason. So
I think that's a fair answer. Super chat from David O'Flaherty. Thank you for that. No question, though. A couple of questions about the battle. From Terrell Reed, how did she not see those ships 3,000 feet up in the air? I could understand if there was fog. Well, again, I'll repeat. The ships were behind the island, and the island has a big mountain on it. So I don't think that's unrealistic at all. She wouldn't be able to see them, especially because she wasn't looking, which that part's maybe unrealistic. But the logistics of not seeing them, I do not have a problem with that. I do have a problem with them shooting her without them being seen. That part is silly.
Yeah. It still could be, for better or worse, I can chalk it up to cinematics. Like, for example, the ships maybe could have, should have had their masts down. That would have made them less obvious, right? But it's a cooler image to see all the ships with their masts up. So you could go on and on. I did go on and on nitpicking how the logistical problems of this, but I realized in the end, you need to tell this story. And you have a limited budget and limited time. And the point is, they were ambushed. They're ambushed and killed a dragon. Okay, that's it. Got it. And maybe they could have theoretically executed this better on screen, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, same. Southie Bear, related question. Why did Dany charge at Euron for no reason? I think we kind of covered this already. It wasn't no reason. She was really, really, traumatized. That was one of her kids that was just killed, and this is consistent with how she reacts. She doesn't run scared. When something attacks her, she attacks back, and then she realized it was suicidal and peeled off. But her initial reaction was emotional, and I don't have a problem with that. It's consistent with how she's been.
She might have not just realized it was suicidal, because she might have known that in the first place. She might have realized it's irresponsible for me to be suicidal here. Other people might die if I die here. Okay. The cause will be lost. There's a lot of things she might have realized. And also, there might have been an element of information gathering here. She might have wanted to know, like, how quick can I dive in? How accurate are their shots? How far? Where are they aiming?
She didn't think of that quickly. Like, in her mind. If we're saying she was that emotional, there's no way she's making those calculations. But
I'm trying to give her some credit, man.
She could have thought about that afterward.
Yeah,
after the fact.
Yeah,
though.
She may gain intelligence even if she didn't mean to gather at that moment.
Yeah. From Leah Rubenfeld and apparently many others, please talk about the name of the episode, The Last of the Starks. Yeah, it's an interesting name. The fact that they brought it up that way, and it's interesting because none of them are set to breed or have children.
I mean,
it could happen.
Sansa easily can.
Well, no, I know, but she's not set to. Like, she could. That was going to be my next comment, that she could easily. But right now, there's no one like that. There's no one that I would look at and be like, oh, that's a good match for her.
Who's the candidate right now?
Yeah. I don't think there is a candidate for her, but I think that at the point where, like, we need to continue the family line, Sansa will be like, okay, I should do something. Yeah. I don't think the show will address that. But obviously Arya and Bran are like, we're done. We don't want any part of this. So we can say they're not relevant.
That's kind of where I was going with that. It has to fall on Sansa.
And Jon, as we see, is going with the Targaryen side. He's let Ghost go and likely or possible to die, and who knows about breeding. So
I don't think we need a pregnant Sansa before the show ends to answer that question.
Right, but it might be the way it's answered. I mean, she probably won't be pregnant, but if we see her getting married, we can assume
she might accept that responsibility,
or in a romantic situation. She doesn't have to.
Yeah, just something
married.
That you can kind of go, oh, I could see where that would lead to more Starks. Yeah, it doesn't have to be that explicit. Just something that gives us a clue that it could go that way. From
enough for a spinoff.
From Sylvia Sabrex. You also said they didn't have enough wood to make arrows in preparation for the fighting with the Whites and the Night King, but yet they had a lot of wood to make all these funeral pyres. Smiley face. Yeah, that's not really what we said. They didn't have enough wood to make arrows in time. With given time, they can get all the wood they need. And that was the argument. They either didn't have enough wood or they didn't have time to make it into arrows. And once the battle's over, they can do it. They have plenty of time.
And the wood, they had not plenty of time because they still wanted to rush out of there a little bit. But the wood things they had to make for the pyres aren't as complex.
Yeah, you just need twigs.
Chop a tree down there. Yeah. Now it's gonna burn. You don't have to like carve it into a straight line and attach feathers.
Arrows are perfect. Yeah, exactly.
But I do also, by the way, in my mind, is like, it's a lot of wasted lumber. That was my thought, and
but you got to burn the dead.
Yeah,
I don't think you need all that lumber to burn the dead. Maybe you do. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know well enough about burning the dead.
How hot bodies need to be.
Yeah,
just let the dragons do it.
Yeah,
that might not be a good look.
Alan Carstairs, can the guys talk about our new Prince of Dorne and what they might bring in terms of army size? Yeah, I have no idea who this person is. There's got to be a new Prince of Dorne. That would happen, or princess. Of course, they said prince, so that's what it is. But it could have been a princess. And
of course, it was a prince.
Yeah. And what they might bring? Well, Dorne's military power is largely unimpacted by the War of the Five Kings, so they could bring a substantial amount of troops. Now, Dorne isn't the most populous kingdom, but 20,000 more troops would be huge. However, I don't think we'll get necessarily. They may not explicitly show up. We'll see. They're hiding a lot of the details of some large battle that seems to be coming, and we have no idea what kind of troops will be in it. There could definitely be Dornish troops. It would make sense if they would be given that line. I believe their help could be very substantial in terms of troop manpower, but they might, just for story reasons, keep that tampered down to something that keeps things more even. Hard to say.
It's something we've seen a million times in film and fantasy and in Game of Thrones itself. Like, just think about in Lord of the Rings, like, it seemed like all was lost, and at the last minute, here comes this army to save the day. It seemed like Battle of the Bastards, here comes this army at the last. So we could have had people in dire straits, and suddenly the Dornish show up. Now, that might be disappointing because they haven't built up to that. There's not like some leader for us to be expecting to lead this charge. Maybe it's Dario. I'm not sure. But
Dario. So much hope for Dario coming and bringing an army. It's not impossible.
And to be clear, we will be speculating. We could speculate a little bit more about this in our book to show and who would be in this position, but I really think it's a moot point. I don't think it's gonna matter. But there are houses that, like, if the Martells were wiped out and not in power, like, we could speculate on who would be in charge.
The Ironwoods would make a play for sure.
Yeah, the Ironwoods are the ones I would think of. And the only ones in the show specifically that they've really referenced are the Danes, but they're really not relevant at all. But in terms of the only Dornish houses we really know much of.
From Arthur Vandelay, a.k.a. the Beard of the Morning. The only thing I've been confident of all season is Jaime will kill Cersei. It's happening. Right on. All right, you heard it. You heard it here first. I do. I'm fairly confident in that too. I am not 100%, but yeah, definitely my top pick. I used to kind of waffle on him and Arya, but now that Arya's killed Night King, I'm pretty much on Jaime doing it. What about you?
I'm so unsure.
Okay.
I'm hesitant to let's say Jaime is the most likely. I think he's 11%, and Arya is 10%, and Tyrion is 9%.
Where's the rest?
I don't know. They get poison herself. She jumps out of a window.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance you're on.
Bran shoots her in the back with the crossbow. I think there's at least 5 or 7 ways it can happen.
This is a good time for us to note the lack of the Valonqar part of the prophecy,
right?
Which is in the books, which we'll talk about on Wednesday, but it is not in the show. So if you're a show only viewer, then you would not. You'd be like, why are people so hung up on it being Jaime? It might be a little confusing to you.
And it's not explicitly foreshadowed in the book. It's probably him. It's referred to as the little brother. And so Cersei fixates on that being Tyrion. But
it doesn't have to be at all.
It could be Jaime.
And it could be the little sibling.
Yeah. So that's part of where that comes from. Question from Johnny Cash. Danny, fool me once, shame on me. Tyrion, let's talk to Cersei. Cersei, shame. Yeah. Tyrion just keeps trying. I mean, I don't think the last scene where he was trying, he knew he had no choice, or he knew he had no hope there, really. But it was the same kind of thing. He had to try, and from Dany's perspective, she wanted it known that they tried because of the politics afterwards, which was a bit cynical, but correct, I have to say. That's just that's all the dirtiness. It comes from the dirtiness of politics and having a big monarchy in the first place. Those are just all the problems with having that.
Dany said at one point herself, look, this might not work, but at least people know that I tried, that I made the strategically, politically correct thing, and it didn't work out. Cersei is, in the way, so we came to the nuclear option, but I'm trying to do the right thing. Tyrion might have known that Cersei wasn't going to back down, but he at least has to extend the olive branch,
Yeah. I am, okay, so let's see. Question from Marcy Douglas. No question, actually, just super chat. Thank you, Marcy. A couple other questions that were asked that we're going to move to the predictions episode because they, at least one of them refers to the trailer. We do not refer to the trailer of the next episode during these reviews. We not only don't really have time to give that full treatment, but some people don't want to know. And so we save that for a different episode. Saturday at 2:00 is when we will weigh in on that and other things regarding the trailer.
One minor note that I wanted to make, just a little production detail that I appreciate is that the characters are beaten up. Bran had a big bruise on his arm. Arya has a black eye. I appreciate that everyone isn't just magically healed the next episode. There's all kinds of things that we complain about with, I don't know, continuity, consistency, timing, angles of shots and battles and all this stuff. But I appreciate that people still have wounds from the battle.
Yeah. So let's talk a little more about Jon. We started talking about Jon going south, and we kind of diverted to talking about Dany, which is right now a bigger topic as we know more about Dany's situation. Jon's whole arc is almost up in the air, although it won't be on a dragon anymore. Ayo, sorry, too soon. We haven't even seen his reaction to that yet. He probably didn't bond with Rhaegal yet, but that puts a crimp in any plans for him to take the throne. He's like, oh, she has a dragon and I don't. But I don't know. Drogon may not live much longer either. So, yeah, Jon going south. Of course, hard to miss the callbacks to Ned going south and how badly that went, especially when Ned went and when Ned's father went south. Was burned by the Mad King, Dany's father. So it's like, ooh. Yeah,
especially when Sansa explicitly points out the similarities.
Yeah, and she's right on too. It's just right on. It's hard to miss that parallel. And from the characters, and this is something we brought up earlier about Dany. We talked about how hard it is for us to see her perspective. It's hard for the characters in world too, and it's really hard for Jon as well because John's died. John has found out he's not who he thought he was. Like, what a crazy thing to happen. He's not he's not his father's son. He's found out his mother is a different person. Well, he never really knew who his mother was in the first place, but he thought that she abandoned him, and she thought that there's just all these things. So it's really just hard for us to put ourselves in his shoes, maybe a little easier than it is for Dany, but just so hard that we're nowhere near. And that's just really, I think that's an important thing to start with when talking about Jon and where he's going. Now, a lot of people have said that it kind of looks like maybe he does want the throne. Maybe not explicitly, subconsciously, because here's why. I'm not fully sold on this idea, but I do think there's some interesting... I think the way Dany said it to him, I think was 100% correct. Here's how you keep the secret. Don't tell anyone. Don't share it with your family. It's simple, man. He's like, I want to live in peace. I just told you how. Don't tell anyone. She's 100% right. and when Varys says it's not a secret now, it's information. Once people find it, he's 100% right. And so it was kind of frustrating because Jon was just being it's consistent for him to do this, but it's that same frustration where he just won't tell a simple lie when he really, really should, and it's just frustrating as a character. Not as the writing, I think it's consistent, but I'm just like, damn it, Jon, tell a lie once in a while.
Can we put that image, Shea, that look on his face when
yes,
I felt like they're like, but you're our brother. Like everything they said, he's like, ugh.
That's why that's the part of this.
Right. It's one thing for him to like just not say the whole truth.
Do your impression again, Sean.
It reminded me of when, once again, The Office, when Michael Scott, it's like he's gotten in trouble for being, politically sexist and racist around the office, and HR, Jan's there, he's in trouble. And he's like announcing everyone, fine, I guess our company's just against comedy. I won't make any more funny jokes anymore. And Jim is like, well, that's going to be really hard for you. And Michael's like, he's like, I don't know. Can you, I've seen you go a long time without doing, that's what she said. You just can't hold it in. John's like,
that's what she said. God.
I'm really a Targaryen. Like, you just can't hold it in anymore.
Yeah. So
I mean, they were just asking for it right there.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. I liked how both the scenes played out that way because it was like when Bran is when Bran is like, or when Jon is trying to kind of sidestep it, they just like, no, you're our brother. It's like you said, and the same thing happened in the previous scene where they just like the way the conversation is going, it's like, well, actually, it's kind of being beaten out of him a bit, but he did want to tell. And when Dany says to him, if you tell Sansa she's gonna want you to be on the Iron Throne, he's like, no, she's not. Like, what? Yes, she is. And that's the point to me. Was like, is he really that naive? And I don't think he's doing it on purpose. He's not manipulating her, but subconsciously, he's going a direction that his ethics don't agree with. Like, this is not. He's not doing what he should do to carry out the goal he's stated he wants to have, which is keep this a secret. And it's blatant.
The thing is, he can't keep this secret, in my opinion. He just can't. Even if that's the reason he won't promise not to. Like,
well, he did promise to only tell Sansa and Arya, and then
he didn't. He didn't promise that.
Yeah, he did. He promised to only tell his family. He did. He said, I have to tell Sansa and Arya.
I think you're right. But there's no way he would promise to not tell them. He just has to. He doesn't have it in him to not tell them. And now maybe to me, it's very similar to Ned. Okay,
but Ned did keep the secret.
Yeah, Ned kept the secret.
I know, right. But when Ned goes to Cersei with these good intentions, like, look, I know your kids aren't Robert's kids, and I'm going to tell, and your kids are going to be in danger, so I'm giving you a chance to save your kids. He thinks, in his mind, he's thinking a step ahead. He's trying to do the right thing and save Cersei's kids. Does that make sense? But he's not thinking 2 steps ahead. He's not thinking. Jon's knows he has to tell them, and he knows that they'll tell someone else, so he makes them swear.
Yeah, but I don't agree because Ned was trying to save Cersei's kids, and there's no motivation here that does that. There's no like, if I keep the secret, people are going to die. That's not the case. It's the opposite. Telling the secret means people will die, and that's what he did. That's the problem I have with it. Yeah.
Wait, John telling a secret means people will die?
Yes. Because it's going to do exactly what Dany predicted.
He's being naive, in my opinion. Now, I don't want to completely argue that there's not some of the subconscious thing going on. And in fact, I think a motivation might be similar to before, is that he doesn't really want to be king, but he knows as king, he'll be better able to do good things for the realm. But I still, in my opinion, it's really just being naive. He just assumed that Sansa and Arya would keep the secret.
Right, but that's all super naive. Dany even told him to his face how naive it was, and he still didn't believe it. Which to me is like, almost. There's a chance this is willful denial. That's what I'm saying. I think that same naive,
right? Maybe, but that same naivete is, I think, going to be a problem between him and Sansa. I think that Sansa knew. I think she was kind of coming to tears. She was like, her mind's processing. She tells Tyrion, and I think she knew that doing that was a betrayal to Jon, and it's going to be a rift between them.
It may not, though. I agree, except. He may never find out who told.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Or he may never find out that it has been told. He might just die.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. That's definitely possible. And the thing is neat, and it's also like, but you're right, that if he does find out, it could be a real rift, because that was in the Godswood. And he was like, no, swear.
He made him swear.
He was like, she tried to get out. She's like, well, how can I promise if I don't even know what it is? Like, swear. She's like, I swear. So and of course, as we've said, just with what you were explaining and how seriously he takes these things, that's a big deal. He takes these oaths.
It might have been silly. It might have been naive. Maybe he shouldn't have. Maybe he should have known they would But the fact is, he does take it serious. He was serious. They knew he was serious. And Sansa could have said, "Well, just don't tell me. I'm not going to swear. Don't tell me." And I don't know what would have happened then.
Yeah. So it's interesting your point that he had to tell, I guess because of who he is, maybe he had to tell, he just couldn't keep that secret, but I don't know.
Can I say something real quick? I thought it was a really interesting kind of mirror image of each other, in that Jon begs, he not begs, but he asks, he gets Sansa, he says, promise me, swear it, right?
Yeah.
Keep this secret of my parentage, right? And Ned did listen to Lyanna when she asked him.
Oh,
Meanwhile, Sansa, and Ned even didn't tell Catelyn. He didn't tell his wife, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Sansa was asked, like, keep this secret of Jon's parentage. And she told her husband. I just think it's funny.
That's right. It was technically her
husband. But just the idea that these Starks have been asked to keep the secret of Jon's parentage, and how differently Sansa treated it compared to how Ned and I mean Jon was in the middle between them, where he at least told close family but didn't tell. Anyways.
Yeah.
Sansa has more time pressure on her than Ned did, right?
Yes.
Ned could just patiently keep this secret. It seems like eventually, at some point, he could have, should have told someone. But Sansa has to make some decisions right now.
He could have, if Robert had died, he probably could have told then. That would have maybe.
I think after a number of years that Ned could have told Catelyn. I think after 5,
that's the one
10
I think
years,
mostly,
whatever, some amount of marriage, he could have told her, just her.
Maybe, but that's the thing is that's ignoring Ned's character, in my opinion. Ned promised to not tell. Boom, that's it. Period. And maybe he shouldn't have made that promise, but even Catelyn is not.
Well, I make the same argument for Jon here.
Oh no, I agree, and that's I agree. But he didn't promise to tell them. There was no explicit like I have to tell them. He doesn't owe them that. Whereas
I'm just saying it's Jon's character to expect this. Arya, they just came at him with family. He's like, okay, family. He even told him, like, why should we make this promise even though we don't da-da-da? And Jon says, because we're family. The same thing you're throwing in my face.
Well, they are family.
Throw it in your face.
They still are family, even with the reveal.
Well, right, but they still betrayed. They feel betrayed that Jon isn't living up to his family obligations. And so he invoked that card. All right, family obligations, keep my secret. Okay, we will, because we're family, I swear. Then she betrayed it. Like, I'm only pointing out how it might, what I want to say is naivete, I think it's legitimate to say it's just that. He really believed, because of family, they're thrown in his face. It doesn't discount the possibility that he might subconsciously want it, but I don't know. It's hard to really know what he's thinking. But the things that were said out loud,
Yeah. No, yeah, and I definitely don't think still don't think it's an ambition thing. No, definitely not that. It's just more of like he thinks he has to, or maybe part of him agrees that with some of the concerns about Dany as a ruler.
Tyrion even said, like, sure, I think about it, but it's not treasonous to think about it. Jon might think about, what if I was king? But he's not saying it out loud. He's not taking actions toward it.
That's true. That's very true. So let's talk a little bit more about...
I still have like an hour of stuff to talk about.
Let's talk about a little bit about Cersei and Euron. We haven't really talked about them too much. By the way, we had a section to talk about the battle part, but we kind of talked about it throughout, and I don't think we have anything else to cover there. But one thing we didn't show is, because we talked about it throughout, is the scorpions and how cool they look, and then they have kraken arms, and Shea noticed they also have like the single red eye on them.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Which is really neat. Yeah, so the detail on those is awesome. It's just as cool as like the Kraxen, like they put a lot of effort into some of this detail, which is really worth checking out. And I really like the scorpion eye perspective shots, like when we had Bran aiming at the dragon. I got that from Euron again. Yeah. That's cool. That was really cool.
I wanted to point out, I put it at the end of the document, but it's a perfect time now for me to point out, we had a friend of ours who's watching the series for the first time, and she was just now today watching the season 7 finale, right?
Oh.
And Bob messaged me and said they were talking about sailing to Winterfell versus flying.
Yeah.
And there's a quote, "All it takes is one angry man with a crossbow."
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that, in fact. Yeah.
Wow, good one.
So I like that. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Euron and Cersei escalate a little bit in terms of their relationship, and really sets up some sort of love triangle kind of situation when Jaime shows back up. And what would you do if you were Euron? Would you just kill Jaime, try to sneakily kill him, or?
It does remind me. You asked me earlier when I was saying it. Even if Jaime's the most likely to kill Cersei, it still only might be 15% because there's all these. Euron is another one. I'm supposed.
Euron is another one. Yeah. I don't think he's too again. This is the same argument as before. Is he wants that baby first, and I don't think that will happen soon enough.
That reminds me of another thing that happened. I forget, for all my note taking, all my preparation, I forgot to think
Tyrion
about this.
Thing.
Yeah, they didn't show Euron's face one time throughout that, which makes me wonder if they're not going to make a thing of it. Maybe Euron and everyone is just assuming.
I think they just didn't want us to be cotton on to the fact that Euron is going to figure this out.
Yeah.
I looked, and I looked very closely, and there's a shot where you can see him from far away, where you can't really read his face. That's the closest we get. So I really think that is notable.
The episode ended very soon after that.
Yeah.
So
might not have enough time for him to be like, by the way, how does he know? That might be the opening scene of the next episode.
And he's like, wait, how does Tyrion know about that baby? Yeah, that might be. It should come up. The fact that it hasn't come up yet doesn't bother me because it was like 5 minutes before the end of the episode. But if they do skip that, plot hole. Plot hole. Euron's too smart to not realize that, to not figure that out.
It's going to be just like when Angela had her baby a little too soon. Blonde hair.
That baby shouldn't have blonde hair. The seed is strong. What's up with that? So other details from the King's Landing. We already talked about, look at all the scorpions. I don't know if Shay put that up on the screen yet, but damn, it looks pretty fearsome.
There was things I want to point out, by the way. I just want to feel good. I've made a lot of predictions, and finally one came true. Qyburn made a battery of these things, not one.
And you predicted they'd be on the ships. You thought they might be on the ships too. You were right about that.
And also, I want to give props to Qyburn once again. Champion, man. He is not failed. He hasn't even had the slightest step back. Since the first time we saw him, he has only progressed with success.
That dude is on point. He progressed with success. And he's dressed for success with that combo maester robe and that gold hand pin.
Do we have that image,
Yeah,
Shea?
now's a good time for that. This dichotomy between Tyrion and Qyburn facing off.
And I know I'm not the only person that made this joke, but hand-to-hand combat.
Oh, God. Oh.
You are the first person I've seen make that joke, actually. So good job.
They should have run. If they had collided, it would have been a high five.
Maybe a low five.
So there's lots. We'll talk more about how Jaime, Euron, Cersei might go in the predictions episode. Except to say that it'll be interesting. It's gonna be something. At least I hope it's interesting. And we talked about all the manpower she has. This scene had a lot of tension in it. The scene above, I didn't really think Cersei was gonna give the order to shoot Tyrion. But it was possible. Earlier in the season, I would have been like, nah. But at this, with 3 episodes left, it was possible. It was very possible. And even if you didn't really think it was that possible, Lena's acting made it feel authentic anyway.
I thought it was possible. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Aziz, I'm telling you, my heart was pounding. I could feel, doom, doom. I was like, my palms are sweaty. I really thought in that moment what was going to happen is when she brought her hand down, not only were they going to unload arrows on Tyrion, the mountain was going to hack Missandei down, and they were going to fire all those scorpions into the dragon and the troops on her. I mean, I thought she was about to just unload everything. Yeah, I thought it was, and then it boom, cut to black. I was ready for that moment.
You're right. I mean, I felt like that was possible too.
I think that would have been a smart decision if Drogon hadn't been just out of
Drogon was too far back.
Just a little bit far back enough that Drogon would fly up and torch her, and so then it's just like, okay, we're all dying. Which is also why you guys. I mean, when you talk about the Missandei thing, a point against it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I kind of went back and forth in my head, and I can imagine people out there were like trying to analyze and break down the range of the weapons and how close they really were, and and like I just am trying. Like I even was like roll my eyes a little bit on like Tyrion speaking up, like. He can't have this nuanced, soft voice. He's gonna be yelling up there, but just for the presentation of this show, fine, whatever the ranges of the archers are, whatever, however loud Tyrion has to speak, we got this image. And in fact, I guess this is as good a time as any, Shay, if you're able to show that shot of Tyrion like looking up. I thought that was just a beautiful cinematic.
Yes.
This show, the series in general is just full of them, but I really like that one. I thought that was a really good shot.
It was good, yeah.
And the shot looking down of Cersei looking down on Tyrion, it reminded me a lot of Troy.
Yeah. Oh, now that you mention it, oh wow, yeah, it really does, because it was very like scoured, the land in front. That like there wasn't much green. It looked like it had been scoured. And yeah, Troy, that's a great call. It really is like that.
And I also wanted to say,
which by the way, you know who did Troy? Dan.
Oh really?
Oh, the other one. One of the two guys did Troy.
Wrote
Troy. Wrote one of the two. I forget which one, but yeah. There you go.
And I also want to say, Tyrion's a freaking hero. I thought that was a really good moment there. However much.
Super brave, even though it was like almost impossible that it would work.
Maybe he's not going to contribute in this massive battle against the zombies, but he was willing to. He wanted to be up there, risking himself, trying to find a way to get an edge, and he has gone out into battle before. But in this moment, I thought this was and even if Dany is like questioning his loyalty, his motivations, like you are a Lannister, maybe you are. We even talked about how the idea that a lot of his ideas, even if they are good or correct, right? Coincidentally, they keep Cersei from being killed or keep Jaime from being killed. It's convenient. Okay. But in this moment, like, even if he is on some level trying to protect his family, he is also risking his own life. I love that moment. I thought it was really good when he's like, this is going nowhere with Qyburn. Well, I'm just going to go talk to Cersei. And he walks forward and they draw their arrows and he stands his ground. I thought that was a really good moment for his character. It was made for a really good cinematic moment. And I'm telling you, like, as many complaints as I have about this show, some I kind of rationalize in my mind, some I can't. Some people have complaints that I don't have. But the fact is, my heart was beating, dude. Like, how many shows get you that emotionally invested?
That was tense. That was really
beautiful imagery and emotions are, oh, man.
Well said, man. Good, well said, for sure. And another thing to add to that. We had a similar moment at the end of season 7 when Cersei and Tyrion have their meeting, and Cersei's the same way. Gregor's got his sword half pulled out, and she's like, she backs down. And so I thought maybe, I was like, that was a big thing that added tension. Like, oh, this time she's just going to do it, So yeah, really, really good tension.
Also, she wanted the mountain, drew his sword, and Jaime's like, I don't believe you, and walked off. And he told Bronn, I don't believe you. Bronn fired at that arrow. And like, it's like, they're like, everyone's on the edge right now. This is
it's bleeding into the fandom too. We're all on edge.
Come at me.
Come at me, crow. So actual Missandei's final moments. We should talk about that. Pretty badass final line. She yelled Dracarys. Cersei gave her, if you have any final words, and that was, if you're only going to say one word, that was cool. She's like, I'm not afraid. Come avenge me. This is what's coming. And did you get a vibe that maybe she would try to grab Cersei and go down with her? I mean, it wouldn't make much sense from a plot reason, but it felt similar to Sansa standing next to Joffrey in season 2, next to Ned's head, when in the book, that she's thinking about it. She's like, oh, I can take him down and we both go die. And the Hound kind of senses it. And that's why he walks over and offers her his tissue. He's like, here, wipe your nose. Yeah. And then she's like, and then the moment was gone. Yeah. And I was thinking of that. It reminded me of that, even though there was no way it would happen. Just like there was no way Sansa would do that with Joffrey for plot reasons, there's no way Missandei is going to be the one to kill Cersei just all of a sudden in episode 4.
Well, I was like, someone brought that up to me, one of our roommates, and I was like, oh man, that would have been awesome.
It would have been.
I hadn't considered it because this goes kind of without saying, but I should clarify. Like, you might be like, oh man, that's so good. She knows they have a line of scorpions there. Like, if she does that, that's all these Unsullied killed. Daenerys killed. Drogon, it just means that a bunch of people are going to die just for her to take someone out.
Well, she might not have thought of that, and if it kills Cersei.
If it kills Cersei, but if it kills her Dragon Queen and her love Grey Worm, then
fair point. Yeah.
Anyways, why she might not have done it, because in my head I was like, man, I actually really wish she had done that.
Maybe it would have been cool if she had tried. Then you could see the bravery, and then it's not a big deal if she fails.
The Mount reaches out and grabs Cersei's arm and
just like, I'm really strong.
It would have been really tense.
I feel like Missandei's a little bit more of a measured, rational person who would be able to look out and be like, I have to make this sacrifice. But I also wanted to take this moment to point out, like, the line she says, Dracarys. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, that's badass. In my head, I was like, what if they had his plan all like along, like a safe word, and now Drogon's gonna fly? But also, like, that's
Dracarys is funny as a safe word.
It's a super significant word for both Missandei and Grey Worm and Daenerys, because the first scene when we meet Missandei and Grey Worm, and that's what Daenerys does. She unleashes, she kills the masters with Dracarys, and so, like, for both Missandei and Grey Worm in their romance, and for their anyways, it was a really good book.
And the book Missandei is like, when Dany reveals that she can actually speak the language that she's pretending not to speak, she's like, and like one of the slavers is like, but the other ones don't notice. That's pretty cool. Anyway, good catch there. That's really good. I didn't
think a minute about, like, the protocol there. My idea of, like, Cersei just launching everything. If I get, that type of thing kind of means all bets are off. So whether that means, but even if maybe it's fine, Dany will come in and burn everything. Well, maybe she can't because of scorpions, but maybe they'll poison the water out or something. You know what I mean? Like, there's a certain amount of protocol that Missandei, if anyone, would be aware of. She so many times has been the person part of this messenger meeting. So I feel like she wouldn't do that. But
okay.
But I also feel like anything could happen in that moment, man.
We have some more questions to handle. Do you have some thoughts you want to get out before the questions, or are you going to try to take these questions in case they address any of your other points? And then
some of them probably will. Let me go ahead and do one. Let me check my notes.
Okay. First question from Karen Sita. People are mad at Ned for not telling Kat about Jon, and people are mad at Sansa for telling about it. Make up your mind and smash the like button. Yes, please smash the like button. That is, we very much appreciate that. You'd be surprised at how much likes can add up and help our videos get seen more. They really do. It's a very good way to contribute without giving any money. But we obviously appreciate money too. I agree. There's a little bit of a consistency issue there, but their circumstances are different, to be fair, as well. But I think we got into that pretty well already. The Prince That Wasn't Promised says, Sansa told for the realm, and Marcy Douglas says, telling the secret clears the one black mark on Ned Stark's reputation. Definitely didn't think of that. Revealing that Ned was protecting a secret rather than that he fathered a bastard and cheated on his wife. That is something that Jon would care about, and the rest of the family would too. It doesn't seem like a major motivation. They hadn't brought it up, but I do think it's completely fair, and it could have entered Jon's thinking even if he didn't say it out loud. That's pretty good. I like that. Sansa told for the realm is a related point, but a little different. I agree. I don't know if she's right, but she is... I don't think she's thinking ambition here. At any point, no point, just like Jon, I don't think she's like, oh, we got to have this power for ourselves.
I don't think she's thinking ambition, but I don't think it has to necessarily be for the realm.
It
could be for the realm. It could be for the North.
Yeah.
And it could be for her family or for her own sense of comfort or worries about who is in power.
Fair enough.
Without being actually extending, but it's hard for me to say.
Okay, cool. Marcy Douglas. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that I think that I was sensing some commonalities between Sansa and Varys. They are both, however good or correct they are, they seem to be worried about the realm. They may have other motivations also, but they at least ostensibly are worried about, and Tyrion even says, the realm, what does that even mean? But whether they're worried about their security within the realm or their family or their home, but they do have these motivations of... You see why they're worried about who's going to be in charge. Yeah. And you even see why they might be worried about Dany being in charge. And a point I wanted to make, another frustration I have with Varys is, like, let's say that Varys is correct and Jon is better than Dany. How much better because this change up is going to come with conflict and stress. So like I don't know if Dany is scoring an 88 and Jon's getting a 90, how much upheaval are you going to get for a 2% increase?
Yeah.
Like I feel like Varys is messing up, but
I agree.
But I guess, and in the same way that I want to try to defend Sansa or Dany or some of these other characters in these tough spots making decisions that we question. We can't expect Varys to be perfect either. But you know what?
Varys hates magic too. That's something we didn't bring up as well.
Yeah. But I feel like we should expect more from Varys. He has been an advisor to multiple kings. He is more experienced. He has more data. I am more frustrated with him when he makes what I feel like are strategic mistakes.
Right on. And it's also maybe fair to say that Varys was well, no, I guess I said that already. I was gonna say that he's somewhat consistent on this point, but inconsistent with the logic that's maybe making his case for him. But yeah, I don't need to say that again. From Marcy Douglas, Cersei standing on the wall felt like the dominoes have already been set, and she could do nothing else but make them all fall. That's pretty cool. That's a great symbolic take. Great, kind of touches on the cinematography of that scene.
Like her hand coming down and the launching of the bolts. It is kind of like dominoes. A series of events are going to start to unfold that you can't stop.
From Ragbag 2, nice name. When Tyrion made the speech,
Ragbag 1.
When Tyrion made the speech to Cersei about she's not a monster and she can live for her child, was he really speaking to Daenerys, her last dragon being her child? I thought she seemed to hear it that way. The cause is lost, Jon being a factor, but she can still fly away and save her child. That's a great take, and I did get that vibe. I was thinking how these lines work for Dany too, and it started us thinking about how Dany and Cersei started in very different places, and like I said at the beginning, a lot of similar things happened to them. They've slowly lost their children, the people around them, their allies, their lovers, their authority in some way. As they've gained authority, they've become more isolated from their subjects. And even Dany is loved less than she was, which has been shown, partly because she's not surrounded by the army that she originally won, the people that she freed from bondage, which of course they're going to be grateful for that. This is Westeros. It doesn't have this built up gratitude to her. It doesn't have this long career of her fighting for them.
If anything, they have a built-up suspicion of her.
Yeah,
right. The Targaryens have, in recent times at least, are not. People aren't hoping to get them back. Now, maybe with the way things turn out with Cersei, they start to. But I also think they did a good job of making that clear too. That Cersei gets to spend this. The people of King's Landing are on her side.
Yeah, and she is using that very cynically with using them as human shields, and
we see that she's using human shields, but she didn't make a speech like, people of Westeros, come be my human shield. Her speech was, this evil dragon foreigner, all these savages are coming to get you, and I'll be your safety. Come into my walls.
It's really really deliciously villainous. It's very well done. From JDS Third, why did Dany want Aegon to hide his identity? Honesty is the best policy. Tell everyone and say he doesn't want it. Done. Dany is insecure and manipulating. Would she hide her target identity for anyone? Well, that first question that arises from here isn't one of the questions that was asked, which is, are they going to start calling him Aegon? Probably not. Talk about not wanting to confuse the less attentive fans. Changing Jon Snow's name at the last minute, not exactly going to help with that. So no, I kind of doubt they'll actually change his name. They'll probably still go by Jon. But why? Okay, but honesty is the best policy. No, I do not agree with that. I think honesty is the best policy most of the time. But let's just use the example we just talked about before. Would it really have been better for Ned to tell the truth about Jon's parentage? No. That Jon would be killed. How is lying more sacred, or the truth more sacred than protecting someone's life? It just isn't to me.
I think that it.
I mean, that's why you can't just. That's my point. Honesty is not always the best policy.
There are some scenarios where a lie, where your honor, like even at the cost of someone's life, might be more valuable because it saves way more lives, right?
Yes.
I mean, it stops a war from happening. There's sliding scales.
Yeah, and when Varys and Tyrion pointed out that if once Sansa finds out, she's going to the Vale will side with Jon, and it's like that's part of setting up for war. I mean, that's avoiding war is everything. Like almost anything is worth it if you avoid a war. Almost like so many atrocities are worth it if it gets you out of war. And it's a horrible thing to say, but war is just thousands of atrocities.
Exactly.
So a couple is definitely tradable for thousands. As awful as it is.
You have to be careful with this slippery slope, though,
yes.
right?
Yes.
There is something to be said for principles and ethics.
Yeah.
But there's also something to be said for why they exist in the first place. And this could become a very complicated philosophical discussion, but it's, you can argue that the reason that we believe in things like honor, honesty, integrity, so on and so, like these constructs that we've come up as people, basically because they help us maneuver around the world without threat of violence.
Yeah,
that makes sense. We can trust, we can be secure, we can know that our actions are safe, that our lives are safe, and so on, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes they're not anyway, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to choose between these two different things that are going to attack your security, and you might have to sacrifice your honor for some bigger goal. Like it's some utilitarian reason for sacrificing honor. Well, honor in the first place is utilitarian. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That is a good point. Yeah. And certainly a thing I agree with here from JDS Thirds, several questions here. This is a good point. If Jon were to tell everyone and openly abdicate his claim, that would be enough, I think. Even Sansa and Arya couldn't do anything about it. If he openly declares himself, I abdicate my claim, I abandon my claim, that's strong.
I agree with that, and I think it's the out is there because that's what Bran did. However, I think they at least attempted to address this with a couple lines of dialogue. Basically, Varys is saying like, Dany won't share. Like that's kind of Tyrion's take. Look, they can just get married. This isn't an issue, right? And Varys is like, no, it's still an issue. Dany won't share the power.
Well,
there
abdicating
will
is
still be this conflict
sharing, though,
between them.
right?
People will still follow Jon and not Dany.
But they're not following him to be king. If he's abdicating the right to be king, then he can't be king.
Let me clarify.
Okay.
Joffrey technically was king.
Yeah.
But people are still torn. Do we follow Joffrey? Do we follow Tywin? Cersei's telling me to do this. Like, people still don't know who to follow.
But they don't follow. They weren't following people who weren't kings, though. They weren't following anyone who didn't want to be a king. All the people who were kings that we were followed were people who wanted to be a king or were being propped up.
What I'm saying is that even when you have a king clearly, there are still torn loyalties. There's still...
But Jon's not going to be a king. That's what I'm getting at. If he's abdicating, he's not a king.
If he
He's abandoning his claim permanently by doing that.
Okay. I guess let me clarify.
It's like taking the black.
Abdicating is one thing. Marrying Dany is another. Those
yes,
are two
those
different
are very
things.
different.
And so,
and Jon being at court while Dany's ruling or something is another thing entirely. Whereas if he abdicates or says, I'm not going to do it, and he goes beyond the wall, then it's a moot point. But if he says he's going to do that and then he's,
in her presence, then
exactly. That's
safe.
what I'm saying, right? I was sort of assuming that even if he abdicates, they're still going to get married or he'll still be part of the court. And I think Varys is right. That just won't, well, I don't necessarily think Varys is right. That just won't work, but I see the concerns there.
Okay.
And I also think that even if it's right and that doesn't work, figure out how to deal with that issue later on. So
cool. That makes sense. From Chris Trombley, can't wait for the Wednesday episode. Almost 2K live watchers. Did we really get that close?
2K watchers?
We're at 1,800 right now.
Oh, nice.
1,800,
Sorry,
that's it?
We're at about 1,800 right now, and the highest we've gotten is about 1,900 last week, I
so
think it
close.
was.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to tell your friends, folks, if you wanted to get us to 2K for some double dancing. I don't know how badly you actually want to see that, but if you do, that's what needs to be done.
10K shirts off?
All right. Sure. 10,000 live viewers. Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Okay, just me and Sean. To get a shade to do, we need a lot more viewers, maybe.
Maybe a lot fewer.
Or a lot fewer, yeah.
I think you're probably more accurate with that, Sean.
Yeah, like if we have 0 viewers, she'll do it. Yeah.
Yes. I'll say Aziz does it about before every stream, just about. He is shirtless on camera. So
yeah, because I always put my shirt in the dryer to get it touched up, and that's how we roll around here. From Amanda Mitchell, no question, just great work. Thank you very much, Amanda. From Temporal JWR, a super chat with no question. Thank you again. From Callista Cross, couldn't tune in live, but came to say thank you again for great content every week. Keep it up, and see you at Con of Thrones. Yes, we will. Shout out to Con of Thrones. You get $5 off your ticket purchase by using the code HISTORY. All 3 of us will be there and doing lots of panels and having a great time. It's in July. It's in Nashville. Come on down and see us.
I have a little observation.
Sure.
Thing I wanted to point out.
Do it.
When Jon when the last of the Starks are discussing things. And incidentally, I think Bran only said one thing in that whole conversation, and it was a very telling thing. A very interesting thing to me. A lot of the story and stories in general are the idea of destiny versus decision. And especially when you have stories with prophecies, time travel, whatever, the idea of, are we really in charge of our own destiny? Jon looks at Bran, when they're coming at him like, but you're our brother. And he's like, that's what she said. But. He looks at Bran, and Bran says, it's your decision. And it to me kind of implied that the future is not set, that Jon is getting to decide his own destiny here, that it's not, maybe it is, and Bran isn't revealing that. Maybe Bran knew Jon was going to tell them no matter what. But I also want to point out that, this is maybe a little bit of tangent again, kind of philosophical, but I think just because it's known what is going to happen doesn't mean decisions weren't made to get there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That is a philosophical, that's interesting to think about. Yeah, let that one sink in. Marinate on that one for a minute. From Strange TV, I now see why book watchers have such an issue with the show. D&D have thrown logic out the window. Yeah, that's we do see, the nature of TV and of having to cut things down to fit in these seasons. And, there's plenty of fair complaints, tons of fair complaints. Yeah, and the books have far fewer consistency issues. There's hardly any consistency issues. They're extremely detailed and nuanced. But you don't get, you don't get the fantastic acting. You don't get the unbelievable cinematography. You don't get the week-to-week enjoyment with your friends. It will be fun when The Winds of Winter comes out. It'll be like constant fun where we're just constantly talking about new stuff we've thought about. But, I appreciate it's like Jon and Dany. You have there's different things to like about them both as rulers and different problems with them both. Not problems necessarily with the books, but things that the books can't do, like have acting.
Yeah.
And music. Oh man, like the music on the show, we talk about that. It's like a 10 out of 10 every single time. This episode was no different. We almost don't even talk about it because it's just, there's not a whole lot to say other than it's great, and we're not like expert enough to discuss exactly what's happening with some of them. Even though I have a music degree, I'm not speaking to some of these things. But yeah, it's sometimes we just take some of that stuff for granted. We don't talk about it because it's not as analyzable, at least not by us.
Yeah, the statement, they've thrown logic out the window. I understand where that's coming from, but it's not like they have completely thrown logic out the window, right? Yeah. It's not like everything everyone does is completely illogical. There's some moments where we're like, hey, wait a minute. We have this immensely complicated, epic adventure of a story going on, and sometimes things don't line up, and we have super high expectations because they've done such a good job, and we get frustrated with those.
Yes.
But in fact, there's a survey. I feel bad. I can't remember, but Christina, the surveys that she's doing in Shea, and I think they're associated with a site that like covers the survey information.
Yes, Blood of the Pod you're talking about. If you go to History of Westeros Twitter, you can see we've retweeted it recently, but you can also just look up Blood of the Pod on Twitter, and they've done surveys pre and post the episode every week, analyzing that data, and it's really interesting stuff.
I shared it on my Facebook too. And these surveys, they kind of go through, and they're like strongly disagree, moderately disagree, agree, strongly agree, and they go through different aspects of the show, like the interaction between these two characters, this scene, the production design, the music. I kind of go through these different things and ask what you think about it. And as I go through, I'm like, strongly agree, strongly agree, moderately agree, neutral, strongly agree, totally disagree, strongly agree, neutral. So I realize as I look at these different things, I think you could come up with a list where I would be like, yep, that pissed me off. Yep, you could come up with a list of things where I'd have all these negative answers. And maybe this survey is skewed in some way. But the point is, it wasn't hard for me to find all these outstanding points, even if I do grumble over some very frustrating points,
Yeah, it's hard, and that's why I kind of encourage people to try to look at the whole and not just let. I mean, it's a little preachy, but try not to let a couple of details ruin it for you.
And it's also not like all the other movies and TV shows out there perfectly execute everything, and this show is ruining it all.
It's fair to say
all these Avenger movies are just full of nonsense, man, and they're literally breaking every record ever. Yeah. Is everyone out there a moron for going to watch these movies?
Of course not.
No one understand logic,
of course not. Yeah, they're fun as hell.
We care about these characters. Yeah. We care about these adventures. We care about these cinematic moments. We care about this CGI, whether we should, whether it's illogical. It's awesome. It's cool. We're invested up to this point. We're gonna gripe at the parts that there are letdowns. You know,
I mean, and it's fair to say you scrutinize it more when you like it more. You know, like I would never scrutinize. There's plenty of shows I can think of that are way worse than this, but I don't bother to scrutinize it because I just don't care.
Yeah.
But and that matters. And it's funny, referring back to Strange TV's comment about D&D throwing logic out the window. Did they say the things I do for love when they did that? When they shoved logic out the window? And will they later have their hand cut off for that? We got a little Casanova action.
The cat that was promised.
The cat that was promised. Hey, little bud. We got a little Casanova in action. A little airtime for Casanova.
No pun intended.
Good boy there. He's handling
right
it.
Microphone here.
Next, we have a question from Kim Abridged, Westeros History. I'm new to Patreon. What's the best way or time for patrons to ask questions? Well, thank you for asking that. That's a good opportunity for me to clarify that.
Never. You patrons, keep your mouths shut. Oh, wait, that's the other. Oh, sorry.
So sometimes I always make a post on Patreon with the episode link, but sometimes it's up only a couple hours before the event, which isn't enough time for people to post questions always. So if I haven't posted the episode link, you should email us through Patreon or at westeroshistory.com. It's maybe a little better through Patreon because then we know who you are, but either way, we're going to see it, and we're probably going to answer it no matter what. We'll occasionally move questions to different places if we think they're more appropriately answered at a different time, but that will all work. You can also tweet them at us. It's just, the best way is for Patreon because that's how we know you're a patron. Otherwise, we may not know who you are if you tweet at us or send an email. But if you say who you are, that covers those bases. So basically, any of the ways you want to contact us is good. The earlier you send the question, the better, though. That's always the case, too.
Send a raven. By the way, I made a new hashtag on Twitter. WWSD. What would Sansa do?
Right on.
I'm going to laugh when you look at that hashtag and it's just like all porn or something. I don't know. It's just like, you're like, it stands
I guess
for
I didn't make
else.
a new one.
WWSD, huh? Yeah, okay. Okay, a couple more questions and then we'll call it. Nathan Morton says, anyway, it ends up 7 kingdoms, not 1. Maybe not 7 or maybe 8 or definitely there's a chance. I mean, I think that if Dany really is on top of her game and she really wants to rid the world of tyranny like she says, well, she's going to have to realize that the Iron Throne is an instrument of tyranny as much as it is potentially an instrument of peace. You know, a good king, well, if you have a good king, it's better if it's 1 realm. If you have a bad king, it's better if it's 7.
Yeah.
7 tyrants do less damage than 1 big one potentially, or if you're probably not going to have 7 tyrants at once. There's probably some of them will be decent.
It's also you're making it hard on yourself when you limit the pool of leaders to a bloodline. Like, that's totally. To me the thing you need to ban.
Yeah, even if they still have kings, but don't do it with monarchy. Like, even if it's not the firstborn. Like, if they were to switch that part, that would be a huge improvement. Michelle, you had something to say?
Yeah, just some other people saying what WWSD could stand for
that
you're repping. They're fine, but Frozen Sea says WWSD, White Walkers should die. And also what I thought you were going to say at first is, even though knowing you're a big Sansa fan, I was like, WWSD, what would Sam do?
Oh, okay.
I was thinking. So anyways, I just wanted to point that out. I just like White
Sam would turn and run.
That's what I would do too, and that's what the smart person would do.
He would go get Gilly pregnant. Some people are wondering about whether Sam deserves to be executed for his violating his Night's Watch because he talked about how he talked about the technicality. He doesn't actually say we can't be with one, which is we can't father a child on them. But now he's fathered a child on one. Of course, he's not going to be executed. That'd be ridiculous. They would pardon him, and arguably the Night's Watch doesn't even exist anymore. But it's funny. No one's going to chop Sam's head off for getting Gilly pregnant.
I want to give a shout out to this content creator I discovered. He does stuff beyond Game of Thrones, but he just does like these 2-minute little videos of watch something and his reactions. And he edits it down to just a bunch of quips. But Scooter Magruder is freaking hilarious. It's just watching him watch an episode. He gets all in costume and everything for it too. But he's doing the episode 3, he's like, show him what books can do, Sam. He's so excited. When he was like, where's Bran going? He's watching Endgame. It just was like 2 minutes of straight laughter. So
that's really good. Okay, that was the last super chat. So we're going to start with the outro, say some thanks, and give a little bit of a tease for what we're going to talk about next time. On Saturday, we'll definitely talk about predictions. We'll analyze the trailer. There'll be set photos like there always is, presumably, during the week, and we'll grab those to get a little bit more information. Several questions that were asked today were more appropriate for the predictions episode, so those will be there. And we've got questions for the Book to Show episode on Wednesday with Lady Gwyn. And we're going to have Joe Buckley, our co-writer, who's helped us with several episodes, including some of our show coverage, is going to be making his first appearance on the show as well. So that should be fun. A couple of teaser items we have for Book to Show. We're going to talk about Daeron's chair, the Bran reference there to the wheelchair, which includes a little bit of information, which is a little distant nod to Bloodraven as well. Talk a little bit more about Euron's ship, talk about this Prince of Dorne, talk about Varys and Aerys, talk about Cersei and Dany and parallels to Rhaenyra, and Phaegon. The Varys-Phaegon stuff is actually coming out even in a oblique way that we maybe didn't see coming, but it fits pretty well for what they've done here. So that's very cool. So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, live viewers. Thank you, everyone who has liked and shared and subscribed and talked about our podcast. It really means a lot to us on a personal level, and it really means a lot to us as a show. It makes a big difference. The number one way podcasts and videos spread is word of mouth. YouTube algorithms help, other things help, but the number one thing is word of mouth. Friends, trusting friends, advice on what's good.
So what you're saying is we need their mouths?
We need your mouths. We're not going to cut your tongues out. We are no Euron. This is no silence. Shout it loud, folks. So thank you to Ashea for running production and having all the Kraken arms. Lots of excellent comments today, too, amidst all your great work. Lots of thanks for
and
all
some terrible comments too that were too soon.
Thanks to Michael Klarfeld for our video intro and all the beautiful maps, many of which you can see behind us, many of which you can't. So go to claridox.de to see the rest. Thanks to Joey Townsend and Jesse Coal for our music. And thanks to a couple of key patrons. But first, let me throw out our shout out to Flick again. Join Flick through the link in the show notes. I'll also be tweeting it. We'll be posting it in the Facebook group. I'll be sharing it around, so if you don't see it, you'll see it soon enough. Please join and support us there and ask us questions. We'll occasionally bring questions from Flick to the live streams. The best questions and the best answers can make it on there. More opportunities for y'all to get shout outs in as well. If you ask a great question there, your name will get mentioned.
Could count the episodes left, our coverage on one hand, it's
on Davos's hand.
It's kind of sad we're getting toward the end, so make it count, rearrange your schedule, get in here, let us get 2,000 viewers.
Yeah, you do that. Now, that said, we will certainly have some postseason coverage. There's so many things that we want to kind of wrap up. When we talk about, maybe in some cases we can talk about some full arcs of characters, maybe think back to their full run. That'll be fun. And of course, we've got some book topics that are show inspired. Shay and I are doing this Azor Ahai bit that's super relevant. And there'll be other things too. Show thoughts, book thoughts inspired by the show that go beyond our Book to Show coverage. And of course, the successor shows are a thing. I mean, we don't know what shape they're going to take yet, but we have modest hopes that it'll be a success. Success like Game of Thrones? Probably not. Super. I mean, that's predicting one of the most popular shows of all time. Like, Game of Thrones is one of the most popular shows of all time. So guessing that a show will match that is a bit of a reach.
It's a reach, but I'm telling you, Breaking Bad, one of the best, most popular, whatever shows of all time, and its spinoff, Better Call Saul, is better. I'm telling you.
It's not more successful, though. I agree with you that it's better, but it is not more successful.
Yet.
Yeah. A shame.
It's not more successful yet. I will make it more successful person by person.
Yeah, all three of us like Better Call Saul better than Breaking Bad, and we know that that's
a bold statement.
Yeah. Yes. So anyway, we do have hope for the successor shows, even though we maybe don't think they'll be as big as Game of Thrones.
And
they don't have to be awesome, though.
Yeah, I am feeling a little sadness coming on as we're closing to the end here and thinking about how few more episodes there are, but I do realize how much more material there is, new show coming, new books coming.
You're going to read those
so
books.
Much stuff. Yeah, I'm reading the books currently. I can get maybe more involved with those. And even a thought that I had is like, because a lot of times people ask this question. We've talked about this a lot. Like, what do you want to do in shows? In the books, Cameron asked, like, do you guys do it like episode, like chapter to chapter? How do you cover the books? And like, well, it's easy to like pick a topic, and throughout the books, this topic comes up over and over. And we could do that for the show too. In fact, we did a Jaime episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Could certainly within the show even still have more material that isn't just this episode. So
you're absolutely right, and we'll do a lot of that based on your all's feedback. We focus on book material, but doing show live streams and talking about it, it's no problem to sneak some of those in here and there without distracting from our work on the book. It won't slow us down because we obviously can't just work on that 24/7, and it's nice to kind of change gears every once in a while to stay fresh, even if it's book to show isn't the biggest gear change of all. It's still something, and it's also a good way for us to keep having you on the show, which would be a little more of a challenge if you didn't read the books, but you're going to, and we'll have more to say. So let's give a few patron shout-outs. We did all the other thanks, I believe. I think we covered everybody else.
One other super chat from Travis Payson. Oh. Thanks for consistently providing awesome content.
Well, thank you,
he
Travis.
He snuck one in there. And if you didn't get your super chat addressed, you can email us, but it's very likely it wasn't addressed because it either had to do with a prediction or it had to do much, much more with our book to show episode.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Shea. Good note. And let's say thanks to a few patrons, and that's that. As usual, we're doing most of the patron shout-outs during the book to show. So this is abbreviated here. Just want to say thanks to our beard guard. Sean, that's you. Go ahead and read that, my friend.
Of course, hand of the beard, Lady Suzanne. By the way, send good thoughts her way.
That's right. Suzanne got to come over and watch the episode with us. Good times for all.
Lord Commander George the Golden. Sir Joshua Oakhart, the White Oak. And of course, my very special Lady Rita of the Copper Mane, the Unbound, Dance the Fervor. We're gonna work out a fervor dance, by the way. We're gonna try to work that out. Maybe
Dance the Fervor will be a thing. Yeah. Cool.
Sir Joff.
Is it going to be like the Scarn?
That's how you do the Scarn.
There's really just too much Office in this episode.
Yeah, sorry for anyone who doesn't like the Office.
Not enough Office.
We're really just like, what the hell are they talking about?
It's like The Office is like cowbell.
More cowbell. Yeah, if you don't watch The Office, though, by the way, all three of us, it is literally all three of our favorite shows.
Yeah.
So if you think our taste is good and you haven't gotten into The Office, well, maybe now you should give it a try. and with that, back to our Patreon shout-outs. Segue.
Okay, so Sir Joff, Warden of the AC, reminder of The Office, wielder of Triad, the multifaceted beard of platinum, red and brown, stay frosty. Sir Tim Corgoyle, mad boy of the Western Desert, Queen Helena von Lonstein. Partying like it's 1999 since 1980 something. A kingdom for a drink.
She and I had a joke the other day. I was talking to her and she's talking about like going off or making like coming down hard on someone. I was like, Elena von Landmine. Yep. Had to sneak a pun in there. I didn't think I did one the whole episode. Last minute pun. And with that...
Did you say blast minute pun?
Yeah, I did not, but I'll take credit.
You're going to start to, though.
Yeah, from now on.
The last minute is the blast minute.
So thanks again, everybody. Valar, rewatch us, and Valar, reread us.